How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of No Excuses on YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, are still.
And Vorsal and no Fern again because once more he's been waylaid by work. So yeah, we're going to improv the show again. It probably won't be as long as it was last week. At least I hope not, because I don't know if I've got the energy for that. For some reason, I was only able to stay asleep for about 5 hours last night, and that's been true for most of the week. So I'm kind of running low on gas by this point in the week. um, but yeah, we had to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week, in as much as we saw of it, which was not really all that much from my point of view. But yeah, we'll do the usual thing. If you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, where you can talk to other listeners to the show and to the show hosts, and post spicy memes and takes that will get you banned from basically any other community if you were to dare post them there. And you get that by clicking in the link that will be provided underneath the show description on YouTube, and theoretically it should work now.
Yeah, I have posted a workaround link there that should be semi-permanent. That'll open you up to a chat channel, but it'll give you the link to our Discord, and you should be able to just join there because it's open to anybody that wants to join it. That's a checked. If it does not work and you're having trouble, it ain't hard to find me on Discord. I use the same name I use everywhere, and I will get it fixed for you. So yeah, that is how we do. Um, and yeah, so I guess we will just start with our weeks then.
Right. Well, my week doesn't consist of much because work was absolute chaos this week. Two members, three members of staff have gone away to get married. And with several resignations as well, we are now comically low on staff. So I was absolutely frantic all week trying to keep the car in the road, as it were. And then IT committed a boo boo of epic scale and pushed a universal update to our LIM system. Well, that's redundant. Yeah, the S in LIMS stands for system. It pushed an update to our LIMS nationwide for my company and basically broke a whole bunch of calculation. So I ended up having to do it by hand, and that consumed a huge amount of time that I needn't have been wasting on stupid bull crap. But yeah, unfortunately, this week was pure chaos for me, so I didn't get all that much done. Um, as usual, every week I start with the assumption that okay, this time for real, I'm going to have some free time, and then somebody will drop a bomb on. I do not know why this always happens, but it does. So yeah, I haven't really played all that much video this week. I've more or less put down FGO. Like, I started the rerun of the Case Files tie-in event, which is an event I was kind of lukewarm on. But honestly, I just don't really have the motivation to play FGO right now because the content the content pace is slowed to a crawl, and apparently it's only going to get slower. Like, the all I'm really interested in at this point is the stories, and I don't know how long they're going to delay until the next chapter comes out. And it was about this time that the JP side started to suffer from severe fatigue as well, where people just weren't playing the game because the content pace had gotten so slow, and they're making more money than ever. If you look at like the Sensor Tower numbers for this month, like, they're extremely strong for FGO, and yet the content has never been more sparse. So in some sense, you've sort of got to dole out some punishment for this type of thing, and that punishment is disengaging, basically. Which sounds like a kind of a limp-wristed way of doling out the punishment, but it's all that you've really got available to you. I even my spend on Saint Quartz has been lower over the past year. Like, I think I've probably spent about $2 on Saint Quartz, as opposed to previously I was dropping like well over $100 a year, sort of thing. So, if all of the dolphins like me are stopping engaging, that's going to hit them in the pocketbook at least a little bit. So, yeah. I'm basically going to shelve that, more or less. I'll probably log in every day type of thing, but I'm not really that interested in constantly staying up with it anymore, because I've got quite a hefty reservoir of resources at present. It's not like I desperately need to farm anything up. I've got several relatively meta comps that are quite well built up. I've got about 2 pities worth of Saint Quartz to pull on things that I really want, of which there are really not that many until over the course of the next couple of years. So yeah, it's about time for me to ease back on that one, I think, which is if nothing else, kind of necessary because of the amount of gachas I've got on the go right now. So yeah, that one's going to get backburned, I think. It's sort of an itch that I've got to try and subdue, if you will. Sort of like quitting World of Warcraft back in the day. But yeah, that's sort of got to be done because you can't continue to engage actively with a product that isn't providing you with anything to do. And there are plenty of products that are providing me with things to do. It's the same principle as having slacked off on logging into Final Fantasy XIV. Because I mean, I used to log into it every day, but then they went into a content lull at the end of Endwalker, and they haven't been able to supply things to do other than recommending that I do my dailies. It's like, no, I don't need you to tell me to do my dailies. World of Warcraft did that, and I have no intention of ever going back because it was the best they could offer. Do your dailies. No. Give me content. You want me to log in? Just give me content.
Yep.
Not hard.
We've been having this problem with long form games in general lately, it seems, where they just they don't know how to give us proper long term projects to work on, and they're like, oh, just do your dailies.
Yeah, and I mean, I can sort of I'm not 100% without sympathy because I understand that the path of least resistance to providing long form projects is to do what, say, Genshin Impact does and just have your fundamental gear treadmill be incredibly abusive. But yeah, it's not working for me right now. A lot of these long term games, they aren't engaging me the way other content does. Like, I can't play everything at once. Nobody can. So there doesn't really seem to be any good reason why I shouldn't just bow out of one and play something else which has had content build up. The issue with that is, I think that philosophy is behind a lot of Final Fantasy XIV's problems because they have taken refuge in the it's okay to play other games thing so many times now that I can't tell the difference between them approaching that from a position of sincere belief in that being the right course of action for the well-being of the participants in the game versus that being a pretty pathetic excuse to not bother to supply enough content. Like, yeah. Where's the line there? Because I mean, the both positions have their merits. Like, not doing the World of Warcraft thing where you would immediately fall behind the gear curve the second that you stopped logging in every day. That, like, I don't want that. That was awful. Having to play 7 days a week just to make sure that my characters and my account economy was ready for raids on Saturday it's too hard. It's too much, and it burns you out. But I also want there to be the content to stay engaged with all the time when I want to settle into a game and just do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I want there to always be those projects available, but I don't want somebody to, chain my balls to my mouse and force me to constantly participate.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy historically has had a pretty good balance of this with the exploration zones since Stormblood, and just the other miscellaneous little projects like get all the triple triad cards, or go and do some of the miscellaneous soloable content like the duels in Baja or whatever. But that's the Endwalker just doesn't have that. It's got Eureka Orthos, and once you've done that, because that's literally all they released, there's nothing else.
Yeah, so in the same spirit as that, I'm going to be slacking off on FGO until there's a surge in content of some kind. And since we have Clairvoyance EX due to the existence of JP server, I know that there's not going to be a surge in content. There will be occasional content that I'm interested in participating, but not more than that. Like a lot of the things even that people do like participating in are things that I don't like participating in. Like the challenge content I'm completely over because their last boss, the one from Tunguska, literally had a mechanic where 40% of your skill commands would just fail, just at random. And that was what they were designating as a challenge.
Yeah,
That does not show any thought of design whatsoever. That's just making it hard by screwing up your strategy at random. I'm not I'm not interested in dealing with that. That's not a gameplay mechanic that I'm participatory in. That's you kicking me in the balls at random while I'm trying to use my phone. Like I'm not impressed. You need to come up with something better than that. And a lot of people like Grailfront, and I can see why they like Grailfront, but it's really not my kind of thing because it requires you to be able to think autistically about strategy, and I'm just not really that good at that. And also, honestly, Grailfront seems to work best by basically finding an exploit that will make the game easier. It doesn't seem to benefit very much from conventional strategizing so much as just finding which one of a handful of characters can really exploit the map, and that usually involves Heracles at length. Like by far above every other servant, he's the best in Grailfront because the format of battles that usually will only last a round just works really well with him because he can just do, buster, 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 and if anything goes wrong, well, he just stands back up again after getting killed. So
it's the
it's
Glad in Gladiator.
yeah, he very much does, and Grailfront favors him immensely. So it's not correct to say that Heracles solves Grailfront. However, Heracles, the issues with Heracles are what has caused the game to become as sort of like systematically degenerate as it is because of ways, because things like Heracles, right? Because Heracles, when he came out, he was the solution to a lot of things because of his Bond CE, and they then engaged in a arms race to break the the Buster Gorilla Berserker uh, strat, if you want to call it a strategy. And then they've engaged subsequently in a series of arms races against each of the meta supports to the point where, like, Merlin, at the current stage of the game, you'll find Merlin has his defenders, but realistically, Koyanskaya, Oberon, Melusine, for instance, pretty much 110% deprecates Merlin's existence. Merlin existed for as the winning move in an arms race against extremely long health bars, and they just introduced break bars, making Merlin cease to function. He's good for endurance fights still, like that never stopped being a thing, but you can equally make an argument for like Tamamo Castoria or something, or I would say
He
Merlin is still effective for like Castoria, Merlin, Himiko, or something like that. Turtle comps, but nobody plays turtle comps anymore because so many of the challenge quests are built to disable turtle comps. Because long form fighting using like double Tamamo or Tamamo Waver or something, or Tamamo Merlin, like those turtle comps, they were dominant for a short but significant portion of the early life cycle of the game, but they just arms raced them out of existence. So yeah,
the,
this is the problem. Go
this
on.
is something I'm worried about if I pick FGO back up again, like just to do the main story, not even other stuff, because I've heard the main story quests have gone. Like, am I just going to be forced to not solve the boss fight and just chain res with my current lineup? Because I'm still using.
I don't think that that's the case. Number one, your lineup is still reasonably strong. And number two, they do test most of these fights using, but they test it using most of the welfares. But there's not that many strong welfares that you miss because welfares in FGO tend not to be very strong. They tend to be middle of the road. There are exceptions. Kentoki is extremely strong. Shiki is strong. Ryoma is quite strong, but outside of those, they are mostly subpar replacements for something else. But I don't really think that it's the case that the fights are not doable. Aside from the unreasonableness of Tunguska, I haven't come up against any boss fights that I felt were truly unreasonable. Like, a lot of the really key storyline boss fights seem to mostly be vulnerable to things that I don't use in most challenge contexts. Like, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of Bavanchi lately, which she plays very, very similar to Tristan, appropriately enough, I suppose. Which is a very, simple high burst archer, quick archetype with strong crits. So anybody who's got like Waver and Skadi can pull that crap off. That's not difficult to do, and that's still relevant in Avalon Le Fay. The gimmicks at play in most of the parts of Avalon Le Fay, they do not strongly encourage the use of like real ringer supports or anything. There are two really hard chapters, Olympus and Avalon Le Fay. Everything else is more or less straightforward, and there's only a couple of fights within each of those that are real kicks to the balls. In both cases, you are restricted in what you can do due to being forced to take story support. And that basically means that most of the metacomps don't function to begin with. You have to build a totally different type of strategy to deal with them. So the story battles tend to not be involved in the arms race, simply by means of factoring out double support formats. And furthermore, it's not really spoilers to say this, but basically in Avalon Le Fay, you spend most of your time traveling with Castoria, and she gets stronger throughout and is a mandatory or at least available NPC support throughout the course of the story. And in many cases, even if they allow you a support, they only allow one caster Artoria. So they've supplied you with one, and 9 times out of 10, she will be better than the one you've got, because by the time you're sort of like reasonably late in the chapter where the really hard battles are, she's level 100, 10, 10, 10, MP5.
Okay.
So if you really need a Castoria for whatever comp you're trying to do, number one, even if you took your own one, you would still only be allowed one of them. And number two, the one they supply available to you is better than the one you've got 99.999% of the time, unless you're a hardcore whale. So that problem in the story tends not to apply. That and the gimmicks are not things that are easy to work around. Like the last boss, for instance, in Avalon Le Fay, the main gimmick is that the boss basically stacks curses on itself and on you and uses them as currency to spend to pull off attacks. So that's not something that any of the meta is built around. That type of logic doesn't exist in the meta. And that's almost frustrating, because it means that they do have enough scope of creativity within the engine that they've got to not be shackled to this constant meta arms race. But the meta arms race is really good for making money. The storyline gets people into the game, gets them in through the door, but the meta, the farming meta, is what keeps people spending money for the most part on for those who are farming for reasons who are like pulling for reasons other than waifu. So yeah, they do have the capacity to be creative, but they tend not to use it because it's not profitable, which is extremely frustrating. But yeah, I don't think that you're unless you were literally trying to get through using only bronze and silvers, I don't think you're going to run into any problems with the arms race due to storyline. The main exception to that is Tunguska, where you need to have the right servants to exploit some gaps in the mechanics, or you need to have quite a powerful kit of characters. However, even in that context, they give you, like, it seems to be a trend that they've moved into, is a lot of the time, though not all of the time, frustratingly, when they give you NPC supports in your support list to choose from, they are really powerful. Sometimes they do weird things like make the support like NP1 888 and like 10 levels below cap for no reason. But a lot of the time they'll give you like 10 10 10 plus bonus buffs or whatever for using the story appropriate NPC.
Let's see.
So like I took NPC supports a lot in Tunguska because they're just that powerful that you wouldn't want to know. And usually when they are doing something really obtuse, it's not going to be useful to run a cookie cutter meme comp anyway. It's just going to like try and womp your way through the fight without participating in it. Like those don't work in story missions because there's always some fish hook in the ointment that's going to prevent you from doing it. But nevertheless, the way the game currently is now is not advancing in a meaningful way. Everybody's just in a holding pattern waiting for the next chapter of the story, and that's what people actually care about now because the meta has become so degenerated. Like, from what I can tell, in a archetypal sense, the meta has not advanced even in JP since Castoria came out. Different things will move to prominence at different times, and occasionally you'll see powerful comps emerge, but there's no god comp anymore because there's so many different things that fit into the various three molds. And even though the leading one is probably Castoria Summer Ibuki, that comp is only like better due to the numbers being better. If you do Castoria Spishtar, Castoria Summer Melusine, Castoria basically any decent arts character, like you could use Rider Da Vinci, or you could use Summer what's her name, Musashi. All of those work, and they work the same now as they did when they came out. I think that they are wisely sort of giving up on that archetype. They tried to cut against it for a while, but then they sort of gave up and just played into it. So in the way the game currently is now, you can sometimes encounter up to 6 enemies in a single wave all at once, which means that your NP charging is through the roof. Like, you really don't want to let them have a turn. the wiping out the whole wave before they can have a turn is generally in your best interests. So they aren't trying to disable meta comps anymore. The problem is that their approach to disabling the meta comps in the context of a challenge quest is usually done through means that are complete bullshit, like jacking enemy crit through the roof so you can't make plans, making random failures in your commands, that type of thing. Like, it's just really bad game design all across the board. I don't know why they're doing it, and people are very unhappy with the way the game is right now. That's why they're calling the current arc Ordeal Stall, because they figure that Lisengel is just stalling for time. They don't really have any idea what to do. And they've talked regularly over the course of the past 12 months or so about just rebuilding the game loop entirely from the ground up, but they haven't released any information on what they're actually planning to do in that regard. So yeah, everything's kind of up in the air. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the game going forward, but most of the fandom is fairly convinced that things can't keep going the way they are. Either they're going to have to shut the game down, which will make a lot of people angry and lose them a lot of money, or they're going to have to basically smash what they've done and build something else, because on the foundations, the ossified foundations of the game system they currently have, they don't have much room left to move. They need to rethink what they're doing. They can't just spin this out forever. Most games at least attempt to be a bit more creative than what they've been doing.
Yeah, they can, even if they all genuinely think that, like, either completely, let's go full radical and say they want to end the game and start a brand new game with better systems from the very bottom up. you have to convince your investors that the loss in money will be worth it, and that you'll be able to make more later. Because if they do that, they're going to lose all the whales that have invested into FGO.
Well, I mean, the thing is that you need to keep your customer base. Like if they decide to create FGO2, they need to get people over to it. They need people to stop spending money on product A and spend it on product B instead. Because getting people's money in most cases is a zero-sum game. They can only spend it in one place. So you need to move your people over so that you can keep your resources consolidated in one place where possible. You need to be a really big company with really clear plans before you can do something like, splintering your efforts into making like Honkai 3 and Genshin Impact and Star Rail and whatever
Zone Zero or whatever.
no, there's one that's already out that's not Zenless Zone Zero. It's like an Otome game basically, but it's made by MiHoYo as well. But you need to be a really big company with really well drawn out plans before you can split your resources like that. And Lazengel has never shown any impulse to want to split their resources. They focused everything on FGO, though I don't know where all the money is going. I can't help but wonder if their production pipeline is just incredibly inefficient now, or something, because nobody seems to be making bank personally. Like their valuation as a company is not skyrocketing or anything, and they aren't producing very much content for the amount of money that they're raking in. So nobody's really sure what's exactly going on there. But yeah, so that's just a really long way of saying that I'm going to put that one on the shelf for the time being, and basically just log in to collect my daily bonuses and so on. I would have liked to continue playing on the regular, but it's not supplying me with things that engage me. I have long moved past the point of doing my dailies in FGO. But yeah, so as far as the other gacha concerned, Blue Archive is also in its between story event holding pattern, but there's still things to do. I just have been busy, so I haven't engaged with them. Currently, Grand Assault Kaiten is up. I haven't attempted it yet since I hate Kaiten. It's just one that I'm really bad at. I just don't seem to be able to crack that nut. It's quite complicated. It's not as complicated as Gregorius is. Gregorius was incredibly complicated, and I'm not looking forward to Grand Assault Gregorius since I can barely do it in the normal version. But yeah, I'm not attempting to be competitive at Blue Archive raids, but I do feel like I do feel ashamed when I can't at least do the one that's 20 levels below me or whatever. So yeah, but Kaiten is quite difficult to do because the way the enemy NPCs distribute themselves and the particular sequences of abilities that they use when they're in the big robot and stuff are all quite complicated to punch through without very specific characters. The weakness in raid design in Blue Archive is starting to become manifest, although they seem to have realised based on the new raids that have come out in Japan and Korea. But it seems like at the stage that the global server is at, they were caught in a pattern of getting more and more specific as to what was required to do things. Like a lot of people who actually like Gregorius still think Gregorius is bad design. And the reason for that is that Gregorius has a really autistic focus on controlling the precise number of debuffs that Gregorius has at any point in time. And your damage pretty much depends on that. And his damage depends on it as well. So you need to keep him in a sweet spot. The problem is that that's really, really, really difficult to do unless you are a sweat lord. And unless you are actually determining your pulling pattern based on the suitability of characters for participation in Gregorius Torment. And I mean, there are people who do plan their pulls like that, but most of the player base doesn't. And Gregorius is like horribly inaccessible to those people for the most part. Like I leveled Harm Assist, which is what the fandom calls Mine. I leveled Harm Assist purely for doing Gregorius because I needed more debuffs. So she gets to be the tank. There are some really strong comps for it that use relatively common characters, but not everybody's going to have those built. That's the thing. The Torment people, though, they all need to have one of like 3 different characters, like Swimsuit Saki or those that came out around that time. It's very specific. Must have those characters to compete type of logic, but it seems that they seem by their behaviour to have felt that was a bit of a misfire and that they had gotten too laser focused on a particular mechanic there. And honestly, that fight is just heinously complex. Like, if you're trying to do it in Torment, there's a million things to remember. And you practically have to slow the game down to half speed on an emulator or something just to do it, because there's so many moving parts. But, yeah. I'm not going to play at that level, but I'm still waiting. I'm more or less just waiting for the next event story to come out and the next chapter of the main story to come out, that kind of thing. So I'm sort of participating at a low level there. I'm having a bit of trouble finding the time, the sheer time, just to move forward with the normal missions, because my characters are horribly undergeared. Like, I'm at level cap, but my gear is at level 50 because I haven't had time to sit down and just plow through the story missions. So I've got farmable gear available, and that's become a real problem because there's not really many holes in the schedule where it's appropriate to do that, because you're spending a lot of time keeping up with event currencies and that sort of thing. Like, the event pace is just really quite high, and it kind of needs to be, because the people who are really focused on playing the game have already done all the missions, the regular missions, so they don't have this issue. But yeah, it's for me. It's hard to find the necessary time. But yeah, that is what it is, and so I'm still participating more actively in that game. Like, I do the raids when they come up. I hate joint firing drill. It's very tempting not to participate, but I usually end up doing anyway. But yeah, it's another one like FGO. That my primary motivator though is the story. That's why I'm there. That's what the purpose of the game is for me, is to do the story.
Right
Are
now,
you stealing my ore?
I'm stealing your flowers. I did steal one patch of ore. I'm just running. I'm running around the Beetleborg area.
Right. I better go take all my mushrooms before you get to them. But yeah. So that's that one. Everything I'm playing right now is a gacha. So I'm also playing both Genshin and Star Rail. Genshin has been fighting me every step of the way and continues to do so in a variety of different ways. But at least I can move through the world now without getting instantly killed by things, since we spent a great deal of time on the last show farming crap up, and it has paid off in the sense that I can reasonably fight now. Unfortunately, when I step up to world level 6, I still kill things far too slowly to do Dragon Spine, where you've got the constant effect of freezing while you're playing. It's not working out for me at all, that. Not really much I can do about that. It's realistically, to fight in that area, you need to have a fully leveled up fire dude, and I don't. So,
well,
yeah.
You need any kind of frontliner that can kill stuff quick. There will be areas in there where health is the deciding factor more than your damage.
There is a massive preponderance of frozen crap with frozen shields and frozen this and frozen that.
Yeah, but the bigger issue I ran into there. Well, I did have a fire character, so of course the fire part wasn't an issue. But
you didn't just have a fire character. You had fire and lightning, and Diluc is very high on physical damage as well, which benefits from superconduct.
But
so your comp works really well there.
Yeah, the thing about deeper into it is where I had to slow down a little bit, and why the middle of the mountain took much longer is because there are super snowstorms that are just going to apply freeze to you. You're just going to take constant health damage, and if you use Barbara to heal, you're in trouble because it makes the cold apply faster and makes the damage it do more. If you're wet when you take the cold hits. So more than anything, for interior exploring in the mountain in the really dangerous areas, it was actually character health that was the deciding thing in how difficult the central area was.
Well, I won't have that trouble necessarily because I'm an absolute plebeian, so I use Prototype Amber, which is a health weapon, the most useless thing ever, and it heals without imposing any kind of debuff on you. Like it doesn't make you moist the way Barbara does.
Yeah, Barbara has a habit of getting things wet.
But yeah, the it's still a bit of a conundrum how I'm going to step up difficulty. Realistically, I need a deck of 4 characters who are built to at least survival level as opposed to just one, which is geared to the 9s. Having one geared to the 9s is good because it allows me to do basic exploration. But if you confront me with like a mob of Fatui, I'm going to be there a while. Like I still haven't worked out what the hell I'm supposed to do about the lightning hammer Fatui
The
because they
only
just
thing
seem to live for eternity.
there's a mushy over here you haven't got. But the lightning Fatui, if you don't have a cryo character to whittle down that shield and make it go away, they're just gonna take forever. They take me forever.
Yeah, there's a really quite a complex interplay between the shields and what is the most effective thing to knock them down because the different elements are more effective in different orders depending on what thing gets applied to what thing. So if you do it in the wrong order, you get an effect, but not the right effect, not enough effect.
Yeah, like
So
you can get rid of a water shield with overload, but you're still gonna be there a while. I'm not
your
sure
icon on
what
the
the
map is so big that I can't track mushrooms.
oh ow there's a it's right there.
Yeah, but I can't use the map to find it because your 2-player icon is much bigger than Klee's. Here is the pickupable icon,
Oh, I see.
so I can't tell where it is. But yeah, that's so. I haven't done Dragon Spine yet. I haven't. I've gone in far enough to get like one waypoint or something because I wanted to have a waypoint there. But yeah, I haven't done anything else with it because you know it was rough the last time I went in there. But I have turned down the world difficulty back down to 5, so that's in its own way kind of frustrating because number one, I'm not playing at the maximum reward possible, and number two, it makes me feel like I kind of wasted my time in some ways because I wasn't able to advance. However, it is necessary. It is a necessary step in order for me to be able to play at any reasonable pace because the game just takes too long to play at world level 6 for me. Like, it's not that I can't win the fight, it's that by the time the fight is over, I have to go and run back to the nearest campfire. It's just not practical. It's not a practical way to play the game.
Yeah,
So,
I was cutting through some dudes, not picking up anything, just whopping some dudes in Dragon Spine while you were starting your week. So there's a nice hole cut all the way to the first waypoint in
so
there.
what you're saying is you're stealing my resource.
No, I literally just said I didn't touch any of your resources. I just whopped dudes.
Yeah, in other words, I can't get the loot from them now.
Oh wait, yeah. Oh, it's just Hilichurls.
Hey, I don't have 5-star characters, man. Like the characters I use Hilichurl parts to upgrade. I don't have any of these. I don't have the glamour of. The only thing that I've got a lot of is characters that need freaking mushrooms. I got a whole pile of them. Everybody needs mushrooms for some reason.
Oh, there was one Fatui camper that aggroed onto me.
I have killed. I have pulled five. I've pulled 3 5-stars ever. That's the grand total of 5-stars I've ever pulled in this game. This game is absolutely cursed as far as I'm concerned. But 2 of them were Mona, 1 of them was Klee, and all of them need mushrooms. That's where I live. This game is cursed.
Gotta get your mushes. But yeah,
The game hates me, as that should make abundantly obvious. Like pulling only 3 5-stars during one's entire time playing a game is pretty atrocious, even by Gacha standard. Especially considering 2 of them were the same character.
yeah, we need to get you just a generic driver character. So
Yeah, I mean, so far I've just been using workarounds for everything. I
like,
don't have anything that is like a prominent, the sort of the lead piece in any prominent archetype.
Yeah,
So everything I've been doing has just been sort of like obtuse workaround combos and that sort of thing to try and deal with a lack of a heavy hitter. And I've made Ningguang into a serviceable heavy hitter, but due to lacking all of the other parts required in order to use her as a real team leader, it's basically been like everything has been the solo Ningguang show for me so far.
you could try getting Raiden Mommy, Lightning Mommy.
And do what? She'll have the same problem as Ningguang, in that I've got no other parts for a team that involves her.
You got
That's the thing.
You
That's
got
the
Barbara
thing.
to make dudes wet. That's all you need.
Well, like, at like level 40, like if I want to spend the rest of my life farming Oceania, then I guess I could do that.
I mean, because that's before I got Mona leveled up. That's how I turned my lightning characters on. Was Barbara make it wet?
I'm not really a fan of superconduct, and that works only more or less for characters like the ones you've got. They have a very high physical component, and considering basically Raiden Shogun doesn't work work like that. That's sort of like not gonna make much sense, practically speaking, because she's got an impossible to override lightning effect most of the time, so you're not dealing any physical damage. So yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a bit of a risky prospect to yet again abandon another attempt to put together a team to start from scratch with none of the pieces.
Yeah, it's just right now your character roster and lack of a driver is holding you back, and that's the only one that I know is going to be, because we know the we'll talk about this a bit more during show content time, but the 4.4 announcement happened, and the headliner character could be good. Cloud Retainer could turn out to be really really good. She doesn't work very well with the Geo team because she's Animo, uh, and I can almost think of no way that would work. But
Nothing works well with a Geo team. That's sort of the problem with Geo. Like I like Ningguang, the character, so I play Ningguang, but the Geo seems to be the red-headed stepchild of this game.
yeah,
They seem hell bent on avoiding making it ever good and giving it characters like that retard who plays with beetles
uh,
as their faces.
good old Araraki Ito. Yeah, it took them until Navia to give them a really good, strong character that wasn't Zhongli playing universal support.
Yeah, like everybody wants Zhongli, but only because he can shred. Like that's basically it. He's the shred guy. He's like Pella from Star Rail, like except at 5-star quality. The fact it's sort of a bit ironic, I guess, in a way, in that when Zhongli came out, there was a absolute shitstorm over how bad he was,
Yeah,
because they'd really talked him up a lot in the promo material, and he was just complete garbage when he came out.
yeah, and well, you had him for the whole story too, and people really liked his character because he's funny. He'd follow you around and he broke all the time.
He
But
just doesn't really understand money.
well,
I guess Zoomers can relate.
he just makes his own money. He is the money.
Is this like his blood or something?
It's like it's he uses his Archon power to make the money. It comes because he's an Archon.
At any rate, he was a mess when he came out, and now he's sort of like he universally considered to be a strong support, because Shred works with basically anybody. If you've got an element involved, you're going to be able to get some mileage out of him, and he adds a lot of sustain to a team as well. So, generally speaking, he's quite a good option. But yeah, I don't have him. So I don't like a lot of Geo teams are like duo or even trio Geo, because Geo characters tend to play into each other and not into anybody else. It just sort of, I kind of wish they'd thought a bit harder about that. I I suppose I hope that at some point in the future they will revamp the way Geo interacts with things to some extent, introduce some way of having them branch out from just being like a weird pseudo defensive archetype.
Yeah, I forego most of the, or just don't pay attention to the elemental effect bonus. Like I'm giving a full 25% attack because I just don't run another fire character, and but I just don't want to. And so, because I'm not Geo, I can still make use of elemental reactions and get by.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. You're not necessarily supposed to forcibly go into to double. There are plenty of quick swap teams that are 4 different elements. Like that's a workable archetype. It's just not a workable archetype for Geo specifically, because Geo is shackled to the inability to interact with elemental reaction.
Yeah,
Like they are they are the only element that is. Like Dendro interacts with everything in some fruity way or other. Half the challenge is working out exactly how they all work. All of the elements have their set of reactions, and Anemo can swirl anything. So, provided you do have another um, elemental interaction, you can use Anemo. And I suppose that they intended for Geo and Anemo to be opposites in the sense that Anemo does nothing on its own, but can interact with everything. Geo can only do things effectively with other Geo around, except that they can't interact with elemental interactions at all. The problem with Geo is that all of the Geo characters with constructs clash with each other. If you put something on the field, it will break any other construct that attempts to come into contact with it. And in certain places, see Oceanid fight, they just disabled the ability to make constructs to completely shit on one element for no reason whatsoever. Like every element has the issue where they can't really practically fight the boss of their own element, right? Geo's the only one that has an element that's completely unrelated that they can't participate in the fight
yeah.
for no reason.
And their solution to fixing Geo was Navia, who just was just give her a big gun.
Yeah, guns. It's about the guns, right? It's not about any other things that she's got big ones of. But yeah, Navia. The thing is that Navia is only good. Like she adds to the mix capacity to do a thing, which was lacking before. A decent 5-star driver, but she's not remarkable. It's not enough to save Geo as an element.
No,
So
but
yeah, it's kind of like a half-assed solution, really. Like she's part of a more complicated solution to the problem. What really needs to happen though is that Geo needs to universally have more applicability in a lot of different contexts. I mean, they've got this relatively significant advantage. I feel like I only play Geo most of the time, so I don't really know how much it impacts things. But I feel like I am outrageously survivable when I'm constantly spewing shields everywhere, compared to a lot of other characters. But because I don't really play without shields, I don't know what the size of the effect is really. All I know is that I never use healing food for the most part, and I consider it a defeat if I finish a fight without full health. Like that's my logic. But survivability doesn't actually solve any problems in the way a game is designed. It's like you can find this in a lot of game design archetypes, right, across a lot of different genres and a lot of different media, where you simply can't win by defending ever. Like I think the one that most people discover when they're very young, well, in my generation anyway, is in RTSs. I guess people don't play RTS anymore. It doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. But everyone starts off as an RTS player who turtles, pretty much, right? That's been my experience. But you find out anytime you play against somebody who's more experienced that there's actually no way for turtling to work, ever. It can't be done.
yeah,
You can't turtle your way to a victory.
even casual RTS players, when they pick up a new RTS, will usually result to more defensive strategies just to figure out what the heck your stuff does. So many units.
But the problem is that in a game where you're trying to head towards some decisive victory, you simply cannot win by defending. Like it's just not. It's not possible. It's not merely difficult. It's not possible because you can't strike a decisive blow by defending. Unless you're playing Civilization and going for the cultural victory, there's no victory solution. Winning Civilization by the UN method is a defeat because the UN is scum. But Yeah, it's this is the problem with Geo, is that they have given them a whole bunch of defensive ability, but their defensive ability is not characteristically better than having any other sustain option. Like, you have a reasonably built Barbara, and as a result, you don't need a Geo character to provide you with defensives. Like, you just have a completely different option that obviates the need for an entire character type.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like a fundamental flaw in making a defensive archetype as a whole in a game where tanking is not a thing.
Well, once again, their solution for this with Navia was she doesn't use the Geo Crystal Shards the same way as other Geo characters. She vacuums them up and powers up bullets.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the way they have to go. However, that's not enough because it doesn't involve elemental reactions in any way, which is where all the power comes from. And they're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, right? Because if you all of the like really really powerful team archetypes involve reaction work in some way, right? And that's reasonable, that's logical. It requires you to understand and implement team synergies effectively. Like, I don't have any problem with that. The problem is that because of the way Geo is designed specifically, you can't make them as powerful as that. Otherwise, they would be powerful in a context where they were unsupported.
And they would have all the survivability on top of it.
Yeah. But the alternative is that the only alternative left then after that is to just make them worse characters than everything else. It seems like you've just painted them into a corner for no good reason. But yeah, that's just there's an extended digression on the sort of fundamental flaw with making a defensive archetype that is presented as being sort of like on equal footing to everything else when it really can't be, because the structure of the game requires you to kill things to win. So whoever is best at killing things wins the best, right? So there's not really any need for all of the extra shielding. I mean, occasionally it allows you to pull some complete bullshit, like just soaking something that is supposed to nuke you into oblivion. But that's not really a sort of like a team strategy. That's a niche strategy for dealing with particular instances of some particular trouble. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they would have to.
this is gone.
Okay, they would have to do something like make it so their future Geo characters, when they get a shield of a particular element, their attacks become infused with that element.
I think that's a reasonable solution. It does add them add to them the ability to act as a wild card a bit too flexibly, so you'd have to ring fence it pretty effectively so as to allow it to be effective, but also not allow them to be a perfect Joker card.
Well, they would have a natural drawback in that they couldn't stack. You could stack one particular type of element and rely on your sub DPS to apply that element to get the crystals for it, but they would be at the mercy of the enemy itself applying elemental body to itself or just being a slime. So you wouldn't be able to consistently have that mega damage boost if you put the goblet of your preferred element type on. So you would naturally have that drawback to it. So I think they
Yeah,
could get
I
away
mean,
with something like that.
there are certain things you could do, but I would rather them fix the element as a whole rather than have one character that actually works.
But yeah,
Because I mean, that solves the problem for one character. And generally speaking, games designers don't like having a hard break in character design where, okay, so every character before this date was designed in this way, and every character after this date was designed in this way. They tend not to like that approach very much. But and I can sort of understand that because it makes it more difficult for an end user to understand what's going on. But yeah, at any rate, that's what's really behind the sort of the drive to get a team archetype driver who is prominent and has some easily accessible pieces around them. Raiden Shogun doesn't really work that well in that capacity unless you've got like a bunch of other relevant Inazuma characters that work with her, and probably Bennett because everybody seems to want Bennett for some reason.
yeah.
But
Any non C6 Bennett is like doubles the force of your team.
poor C6 Bennett. I feel really bad for the people that C6'd him before understanding what that was about.
Yeah, this is this is why pulling, because when I came back to the game, I was thinking I heard people mad they get pulled Bennett a lot. So I remember him getting memed on. So that must have meant he was bad, right? No, Bennett's actually probably the best character in the game. The problem is you don't want to get him to C6 because and if you pull 6 copies, 6 extra copies of him, he would sit in your inventory with an exclamation point on him the whole forever because you would never
Yeah,
ever want to C6 him.
yes. When you C6 a character, what happens to the ones that you get after that?
They're converted into masterless, whatever the big Stardust is.
So basically, you don't get that star glitter because you haven't maxed him out. So every pull that you get after that point of him is dead.
Yeah, I don't know if they changed it so that it tracks. And just,
Hopefully it does. Hopefully it does, because that's too cruel. That's too cruel.
yeah. So the bonus
Yeah,
big boy star glitter just doesn't happen.
but yeah, I don't have the quartz to do any sort of meaningful amount of pulling as it is. But I would like to build up my geo team since I've already made good progress on it. The problem is I need the right sorts of banners to pull it off, and
Right.
probably Zhongli and Yunjin are probably the most sort of like in pole position to be brought in, with Yunjin being the easy one because she's actually quite bad, but she will fill a geo slot while also providing off-field buffs.
She's the
So
4-star opera girl, right?
yeah,
Okay. So continuing the what you call it, that will be doable in 4.4 because they're letting you pick a free Liyue 4-star. And she
yeah.
counts as a Liyue 4-star.
I just need to overcome the temptation to get another Ningguang. But yeah, because she will. Currently, I use Noelle as a slot filler just so that I can get the damage boost from the Geo Resonance, because that's pretty much the only way to stack more damage if you're Geo is to have Geo Resonance. You pretty much can't get away without it. It's pretty much necessary, unfortunately, because you get stronger shields, making you even more durable. You're shielded, your damage goes up 15%, and you get 20% Geo defense shred. So it's a really powerful resonance, generally speaking. But you are sort of shackled to it because you simply can't use elemental reactions. You've just got to pump your Geo, which is why every Geo team stacks at least 2 Geo. There's not really an option not to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Yunjin is a good option to provide off-field support in place of using Noelle just for the resonance, but Zhongli is the premier option. You can also use Albedo as sort of like a geofficial, I guess, in that he leaves stuff on the field to help you out. But yeah, there are options. I just need banners and Primogems. The only way that I can really change plans is if I find a character or a team that I really like and want to build around, and I just decide to wail for it, to wail hard, and that seems like a poor decision, fiscally speaking. But yeah, because when it comes to me and Gacha, I have to pull to Spark usually. Occasionally, I will get one pull before Spark. That's what happens to me in Star Rail. That's what happens to me in Blue Archive. Is that usually it happened to me in the Dearly Departed Pinecone as well. Never forget. That I would
But
always either Spark or get it on the pull before Spark.
but in Pinecone it was functionally a non-issue because
Well, the rates were good.
yeah, the rates were
Generally
so.
speaking.
It was a side games game, so the rates were so good, and the free currency was at such a high rate. As long as you were actively playing, you could hit Spark between banners of note.
Yeah, but yeah. So in Genshin, like I said, the entire time I was playing, and I played for quite a while before, and I've come back for a little bit, and I've pulled quite a few times, but I've never pulled anything of any interest at all. It's like I said, 2 Monas and a Klee. That's my entire 5-star collection.
Need them shrooms.
And Klee is just not very good, and Mona really shines when she's got someone with a damage burst to help.
Yeah,
Like that,
you need
it really
somebody
has to be that way.
like a catching or a loop to take advantage of that 5 seconds with omens when omens up.
Yeah, I was hoping to pull Ayaka for that, but that didn't happen. Get her, but yeah, I didn't get anybody though, so there's nothing new about that. Yeah, so Genshin is still fighting me, and I'm still like flitting between ideas mostly. Although most of my eggs are in the Ningguang basket right now.
We spent a lot
And
of resin on them on that artifact set.
well, I have a good artifact set now. If anything, it is a bit too good in certain respects because I charge energy way too fast.
I am trying to stack energy regen on Mona for her scaling, and if you take away Mona's bonus she gets from her weapon right now, because I'm using an energy regen weapon with like plus 50% energy regen, you have more energy regen than I do.
Yeah, well, I mean that's good in its own way because the Star Shatter is like 50% of Ningguang's DPS sort of thing, or more, depending. Like it becomes less as you get more constellations because her basic attack gets steadily more powerful, but the the problem is that I regenerate energy so fast that I'm often, very often, I've got full energy and I'm just waiting for the timer to run down on it. So yeah, but I mean, I'm not that worried about it. We spent a lot of resin on it, but I managed to in the end put together a very solid set. There are some misfires on the stats, but I'm not like I'm not going to be Team Sweatlord about it. It's just it is what it is. If I can get like semi-passable ones, then that's fine. I've got like a lot of defense on these and that type of thing, but and I don't think I've got any. I don't think I've got any percentage attack substats. No, I've got a couple. I've got a couple of percentage attack substats. So it's not an entire loss. It's definitely not an ideal set, but it will do. It will do,
Well,
and it has allowed me to survive when I couldn't before.
farming for ideal sets involves like paying for the daily Primogems infusion and then dumping like hundreds of dollars on Primogems to do the 6 allowed Primogem refreshes every single day.
Just looking at like the inventories of people who post their like retained garbage of gold relics that is sitting in their inventory from their farming, their last weekend of farming, it just makes me hyperventilate thinking about how much money must be being spent there. No wonder
Yeah,
they're able to make such polished games. They've basically got infinite dollars to fund their development.
yeah. I tell you what, the artifact grind. If you become too obsessive with needing them perfect substats, you're gonna make a lot of money off some whales.
But yeah, so that is what it is. I've got I've got a attacker that is now like Ningguang is I think the lowest attacker, the lowest attack stat archetype driver in the game. Like there's nobody who does less damage base than she does. Um, but she's got her own advantages and disadvantages. The homing is quite good, and although the homing often betrays you, especially if you happen to have a lot of bugs around. Because those things are a huge pain in the butt.
See,
The,
Electro
the,
Mages.
ja- the Jades will just chase after the bugs constantly. But yeah, it is what it is. I just want to get to a point where I can play comfortably without constantly getting whomped by things. So basically, I just need a few common solutions to common problems in the world so that I can just go wandering about and not just run into something that I'm like, guess I'm running away now because I don't have a way of dealing with this, which happens unfortunately a lot of the time. Um,
Come on, we're
but
not gonna make it across this river, are we?
it's happening less often these days than it used to, so that's something at least. But yeah, I'm also playing Star Rail, although I haven't made any real progress in it since I basically have only this week had enough time to come home, dump my whatchamacallit, uh my what are they? It's not called resin. I think it's just called Trailblazer Energy or something. Um, I've just had enough time to go home and then dump that and then go to sleep, so I haven't really made any progress there, which is a bit frustrating because I'm really enjoying that game, both aesthetically and in terms of seeing what I can do. I still have the problem of not having any cohesive teams in in Star Rail. Like that's still an issue there. Although I did pull on Kafka's banner, and although I had to pull to within a millimeter of Spark, I still managed to get Kafka in the end, which is good. She is an archetype driver. The problem is that she drives an archetype that is largely untested at this point, because I have an extremely powerful support who is a sort of a Mona style support in the sense that she makes like outright damage much better,
Makes the
and
funny
I
numbers.
have an extremely powerful archetype driver who is a driver for the dot archetype that can't crit and doesn't rely on big individual numbers but a haze of little numbers. So there is some speculative team building being done on trying to work Kafka and Ron May into teams together, but nobody really knows how well it would work because it's not the obvious way of building it. There are like pairing somebody with self-sustain and giant numbers with Ruan May, like Blade with Ruan May, is a much more logical way of building a team. And I can't do that, of course, because for me it was a case of I can roll on Ruan May's banner or I can roll on Blade's banner, and Ruan May is pretty and I'm planning to thirst pull, so we'll pull on her one instead. So yeah, and also she's got sort of like anti-synergy with the other character I pulled on her banner, which was Shuyi, who is a good character in her own right, but has anti-synergy with Ruan May on account of Shuyi does her best effect on a battle when the enemy is not broken. But Ruan May's ability is to break enemies more often and keep them broken for an extended period. So I have skillfully managed to roll the most counterintuitive combination of characters available again. So yeah, not really sure how exactly I'm going to square that circle, but I'm early enough in the game that it doesn't matter at this stage. It still has the same sort of drop rate problems. There was a big project apparently in the community to try and work out what Star Rail's stat drop rates were, and they're pretty evil. A lot of them are pretty evil. Like the ones that are in real high demand are crit chests, I think it is, and regen or not regen. What is the term? I think it's I don't know, energy recharge probably. Ropes. I think people are calling them ropes. I don't know if that's what they're actually called. They look like ropes anyway. Those apparently seem to have a drop rate of something like 1.8% on a relic. Like that's how often you'll see that as the primary stat.
I see.
Not great, but they are the most effective, and they are also the rarest. Also, I don't know how it works in Genshin, but apparently there is a there's a much like in Genshin, there's a stat range that a substat can roll. It's going to be between X and Y. Apparently in Star Rail, it's really, really heavily weighted to the minimum value. Like every iota above the minimum possible value toward the maximum possible value is exponentially rarer than the last. So it's basically safest to just aim for having the stat at all. Anything else that you get is a bonus. But so long as there's that extra minuscule quantity of optimization to be had, you know there are people going to go for it, right?
That's cash money in the bank.
But
people be cray cray once you got them hooked.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of content I haven't touched in there, and I'm barely able to keep up with doing my weeklies, which I don't begrudge doing my weeklies because every weekly is still dropping a pile of crap that I need because my characters are underdeveloped, and also because my roster's kind of a bit iffy. I don't have a well developed roster yet. I got though, because I had to pull almost to Spark on to get to Kafka. I did get a whole bunch of sort of like your permanent 4 stars and stuff that are quite serviceable for doing various other experiments and teams and that sort of thing. It's just a matter of farming up all the stuff to build them up, which is what, of course, is very time consuming. But yeah, it's a work in progress. Also, this week, I think it was this week. Dr. Ratio.
Yeah.
Dr. Ratio came out. The free 5-star. Q Genshin players molding like crazy. My goodness, the tears.
Well, can you blame
That's
them?
pretty.
Especially the casual Genshin players have been just abused by MiHoYo.
Yeah. So Dr. Ratio, the 5-star imaginary damage character, very useful to me since while there is a free 4-star imaginary damage character, I haven't unlocked it yet because she comes along a bit later in the story. So I haven't gotten access to her yet. So I've been sort of struggling along, being unable to do imaginary damage at all, which has sort of constrained my team archetypes. And plus, I only had at that time one hunt character, which is sort of like specialized single target DPS. And Dr. Ratio is also a hunt character. I suppose the thing with Dr. Ratio is that he's got some strong synergies with other characters. I don't think I've got most of them though, because most of my characters are relatively straightforward bruisers. And Dr. Ratio's specialty is working alongside characters that inflict a lot of debuffs, because the more debuffs on a target, the higher the chance of Dr. Ratio just getting bonus follow-up attacks when allies attack. So, yeah, I mainly use characters that are a bit contraindicated to that. Since, despite the fact that she's like on paper quite bad, I still get a lot of mileage out of Destruction Trailblazer and so on. Although I can probably gradually start phasing her out in favor of a real destruction character with an actual kit, as opposed to literally a girl with a baseball bat who hits things. Because Destruction Trailblazer is serviceable as a beat stick, but really doesn't have anything that you could call a synergy with anything. She just press button to do damage on one target, press button to do damage on 3 targets. That's her whole kit.
Hey, that sounds like a solid kit to me.
In practice, it is a solid kit. The problem is everybody else's is better.
Yeah,
So
you got to remember too, when it comes to on paper in these games, there are two standout things that come to mind in Genshin in the MiHoYo community. First, do you remember way back when we first started playing this game, when Klee's numbers dropped?
Yep, people went absolutely gaga, and then they were able to encounter the joy of actually trying to make those numbers land on something.
Yeah, it turns out a parabolic arc of an attack angle for the vast majority of players is going to reduce your effectiveness, so she can have the biggest numbers all she wants. It's not going to play out in the optimal scenario at any point in any scenario, even in Spiral Dust.
Bad. Her skill is equally bad because it bounces along the ground at a really slow pace, and a lot of enemies will simply just walk around it.
Yeah.
Because it moves very slowly. Like when you get in the right position, like either you are at the perfect distance to be effective, or you're at point blank and are capable of interacting at that range. Like you pop your ult and go to town, and she will do a truckload of damage. Problem is actually executing on that is really, really hard.
Yeah. So there's that example, and then there's the more recent example of them just not factoring ease of play into use at all with Diluc on the C0 tier list. Because Diluc's got pretty good numbers. He's a Claymore user, which works against him, but also is nice utility. But he is the most brain dead easy 5-star character to play for big numbers.
Yeah. You can just walk out there and hit a thing, and your problem will be solved for the most part. Like everything above that is sort of like, well, you're arguing over the details and the finer optimizations at that point, and that's just not a game most people are playing.
Yeah, when we're talking about tier lists in these games, the MiHoYo player base is on another planet and has forgotten what it's like to just be happy to get a C0 5-star.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I'm molding about it is that I have got 5 stars and stuff. It's just that I have managed to pull the most ass about face combination of them that is not able to actually accomplish any of the things that I'm trying to do. So I can it's sort of like getting blessed to pull one of those really obnoxious characters in FGO that keeps coming out when you don't want them. Like, it's like, oh great, I pulled another Chevalier Dion or whatever. Like, that build has not been used since probably the first quarter of year 1 of FGO.
Man,
When she
remember
was
when
last
Fern
relevant.
was like, "Oh, look, I got a gold on this pool," and it was Chevalier.
Well, I mean, it's not Theno. The Theno at least is so bad that she has devotees who are like, they're just like monomaniacally focused on finding ways to make Theno relevant.
At least, yeah, it's.
But she can be used in Charmlock teams, though. She has a use.
That feeling
It's
when
not
you're
good, but you can
outshined
do
by
it.
both of your 3-star sisters.
Yeah, yeah. Because Medusa's really quite good for farming doors. I used her to farm doors for years. But yeah. But yeah, poor Klee has really sort of had a rough time. I suppose she has advantages in that, like, well, number one, her design is really cool. Like, she's got very unique abilities. She's not just your usual Catalyst character that throws balls of whatever or anything like that. She's got her weird parabolic arc and her bouncy toys and her like short range nuclear weapon thing that she uses and so on. But it's very she's very limited in a lot of ways. Like, she's most effective if you just give her Bennett and then stack more pyros on top of pyros on top of pyros and then go to town. Her poise damage is monstrously high. She can snapshot with her abilities, like that bouncy thing across the ground. It lasts a while and it bounces along and so on, but it will always put the stats that you had at the time you fired it and retain them. So you can just buff yourself to the 9s and then just go to town with it. And she's got her it's generally sort of, she's generally good at setting fire to everything around her. So when you need the element, she's always handy. Problem is, she doesn't work in a team. Like, there's just not really, like, she synergizes well with individual supports like Bennett, but you really can't do very much with her other than set things on fire. Like, there's basically no 4-man teams that synergizes with her across the board. And yeah, she's never going to hit the numbers of a hyper carry. Like, you can't, because she's got no synergies, you can't just buff her crazy and then go to town. Like, with most drivers like Raiden Shogun, if you want to use her that way, or Ayaka if you want to use her that way, a lot of them, like, you can build a hyper carry team, right, which is all based around just supporting one carry. Can't do it with Klee. She's statted as though you can, but her synergies are so poor that you can't. So yeah, she's got all of the things that, like, on when you look at her on a spreadsheet, she's got all of the things that make her look like a crazy hyper carry, which is why everybody went gaga over her. But you can't actually make it work in practice.
Yeah,
there's just not the stuff for it. So yeah.
in the world of C0, if I've been playing a bit more than Vol has, so I've had enough to do extra pulls and blew my backup wad of Primogems on Navia and her weapon.
Purpose of a backup is to not blow it.
I mean, you keep the backup around in case a waifu comes out. They're like, that one, and Navia was very much that one.
The Navia weapon has become something of a meme online, from what I can tell, because it seems like a lot of people who didn't want it ended up getting it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't build enough pity. They got 50-50'd.
I had the opposite problem. Well, I call it a problem in air quotes because the sword that was on the banner with it is best in slot for a lot of characters like Keshing. And I got the sword and had to pull almost a pity to get the Navia weapon. And then just for shits and giggles, I threw another 10 pull at it and got another copy of the sword.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
so Navia's banners are very nice to me, probably because the game wanted to hook me back in. Now, if only I could level her up.
Ayaka's banner was not nice to me. Ayaka just gave me a mountain of sucroses. So I went from having sucrose to having C6 sucrose in the span of one pulling session. Because the only thing that came out of that banner was sucrose. Very, very frustrating. I haven't been getting any characters out of the permanent pulls. That's not been a thing that's been happening.
You've got to
It's
be
just not.
approaching pity
Like,
on the Permi again.
I don't know if the permanent. I don't think permanent has pity. Does it?
Maybe? Hmm.
Maybe it does.
I'm
But
sure.
yeah, I haven't been getting anything out of it. Like it just keeps giving me like rust for whatever reason. I don't know what I did to deserve this. But you have told me now that there is a character that rust is actually good for, which I find hard to believe, but that must be the case.
Yoimiya, apparently, rust is one of her best weapons.
To be fair, last time I pulled on it, I didn't get rust. I got Favonia's Warbow instead. Just equally useless.
Favonius weapons are very character specific in how good they are. Like, some of them, they are really good and can work out really well. Other ones, they are complete just garbage.
Yeah. I saw the other day somebody posted a screenshot of them having leveled the bell up to max level.
Oh. Well, Noelle's happy.
It's not good for Noel.
Oh, wait. I keep thinking the bell is the defense one.
No. White blind is the defense one. The bell is the HP one.
Oh, the one that's totally useless.
No, it's for that character that you pulled. What's her name?
Oh, yeah. It's not for her yet.
But yeah, well, when you get her enough constellations of her to scale with HP. But yeah, it's there's a lot of dead pulls in this game that are very frustrating to get, and I get every single one of them. So yeah, the whole weapon system really rustles my jimmies. Something fierce. At least the equivalent to weapons in Star Rail don't seem as like narrowly focused. They don't have the same like, oh well, this has a crazy stat improvement or whatever. That's just not a thing. Like they're more like craft essences in the sense that they give a spread of stats which might be weighted in one way or another, but you're going to get a bunch of stats regardless. And they tend to have their effects tend to have an effect that is applicable even if it's sort of like off center for any given character. Like a lot of them will have something like 8% attack and it does all of this or something like that, or like it will do 6% speed or something plus once you hit this particular stat or you do this particular thing or whatever, it will improve to something else. And you might not be able to use the whole thing, but it won't actually be a dead drop. You're going to be able to get some mileage out of it. There are still really bad ones, but really bad usually just means really character specific. Probably not as character specific as Rust, though.
Yeah, Yoimiya is
Which,
like the only character in the whole game that can use it.
I mean, who else does on field bow damage? Like, you
And
don't.
it's not just on field bow damage. It's on field bow damage with basic attacks and no charge shots.
Yeah, but yeah. So Gacha is a harsh mistress, as always. Continues to be a harsh mistress. I just hope that it runs out of harshness eventually, because I would really like to actually get some characters for once, as opposed to just getting more copies of terrible weapons over and over. I'm not convinced pity exists. It does not seem to ever come into play for me. So yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
A wishing pool
Oh
of useless swords. One more pull. Just one more.
yeah, I don't think that they are going to be nice to me. I'm trying to figure out if there's actually pity, but it doesn't look like there is.
There may not be. That might have been just me being hopeful.
No, there must be because there's consolidated probabilities listed as well, and you can't consolidate unless there's two different types of ratio.
Man. Speaking of Diluc, I had to rebuild my Diluc this week. That was fun and resin heavy. Had to switch him off of the Gladiator set onto the Pyro Damage set because he could not hit for crap anymore. He was so far behind catching it wasn't even funny. And I got there, and now he's close to where catching is in terms of raw DPS. But man, he did not want to get any good drops. I shouldn't have put chicken in my mouth there because you're reading the thing.
Yeah, I couldn't find any clear details on it, but I can't tell how far away I am from Pity either because I don't know how many pulls I made before I stopped playing.
Yeah, and the wish tracker
And it
resets
doesn't.
every once in a while.
Yeah, I don't know if it resets the Pity at the same time or not. It would make me sad if it does, but it might.
Yeah. So yeah. You got anything else for your week?
Not really. Most of it was more about gacha in one form or another. I don't think I really did anything else. Like, I've virtually stopped watching anime because the season's just so lackluster. Like,
Yeah.
I just haven't seen anything that inspires me. Oh yeah, that would be cool. I want to watch that. Nah, don't really care. This is just like the crop of generic isekais again.
Yeah.
Like we're still an isekai country. I presume we're going to hit the end of this arc sooner or later, but I don't know how long it's going to take to actually get.
Yeah. Like I look at the current crop of anime and I'm just like, I could watch this, or I could go find a long form YouTube video recapping the entire history of the Final Fantasy franchise or something. When we get to the, I'll just go look at YouTube instead. When anime was on the brain, we're in a rut.
Yeah. Well, I browse a lot of YouTube the rest of the time anyway, but it's like anime just doesn't rank anymore because we're not during seasons where I'm really into it. I literally just look forward to the weekend so that I have time to get caught up on the shows that I'm watching and see what happens next in the story and whatnot. I just don't look forward to that at all anymore. It's like, oh, I've got free time. What am I going to use my free time for? Like, it's not booked out anymore in that sense, which is, in its own way, it's a good thing. But it, I would rather it had come as a matter of me making that decision, as opposed to, oh well, what I was spending my time on now has become so complete garbage that I don't want to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Bubble my way and chase you around the city. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, all media will go through rut periods, but this one with anime has been getting worse and seems to be extending longer than I think it.
I mean, it is, but I think that that's just because we don't remember some of the previous eras. Because the last time I quit watching anime for quite a long period was because the moe boom had been dragging on for too long, and everything was like harem moe crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, oh my goodness, please stop! Like every show was uninteresting to me, and so I stopped watching. And then eventually I came back, just sort of out of on a whim, and things were a bit fresher, so I watched for a while. But yeah, I think we're sort of we've hit the point of formulaicism a bit too hard at this point. I don't know if it was always this formulaic. Like I mean I don't know if last time it was that formulaic or whether it was just like everything was sort of like um dewy-eyed girls making childish noises or like eternal Azumanga Daioh and K-On clones and things. But yeah, it was ugh, ugh. We're in that rut again, the same rut where something has made money for a little bit too long, and so nobody wants to take the risk of not doing that thing. until they will start to crash. So we just have to ride it out, basically.
Yep. All right. So, I guess we'll quickly pivot to my week because I don't have much new to add to the weeks this week. There was a goodly number of raw hours spent in Genshin this week, but none of it is going to be very conducive to discussion. So there were two projects this week. One was get Mona up to workable, because I've got this 5-star that I would like to use because I like being able to cheat the water, and it's
And it's nice to be able to look at her backside all the time while you're playing it.
well, I'm more focused on the patterns on her hose actually, but
And she's one of the characters that has a free alt outfit too.
yeah, you can put her in short shorts if you really want to go for the booty over the hose. But I think the hose looks better.
Well, I mean, she's got nice legs, so I think the hose works for her. But there are some people who are really into the booty shorts.
Yeah, but no. I like Mona. I like her design. Yet another character with bouncing pigtails to add to my collection. All my active girls seem to just have bouncing pigtails on our run.
She's basically Fate Stay Night Seren, except without even the old money to her name.
Yeah,
Although in the Nasu verse, it's a meme that Rin never has any money, but she at least comes from a privileged background. Mona, not so much.
Yeah, Mona. The thing that made me go, actually, I want to level her up was actually an English voice acting line, which I don't ain't normally a lot to do it for me, especially with female characters. But when you open chests with Mona, sometimes she will say, "This should cover food and rent for a while." And her voice actress is clearly not very experienced and very new, so she accidentally sounds super genuine and happy when she says it. It's really funny. So on this whim alone, I decided to just go ahead and get her up. She's a 5-star that's been sitting in my roster for a while now, and needed to get up there. The only 5-star of my 5-stars I don't have leveled up right now, aside from the one that'll never get leveled up, is Jean. She's gonna be chilling at level 50 for a while, probably, because I have no reason to level her. I like Jean's character design, but she just doesn't do anything. Mona has
she's still used in a lot of comps.
Yeah, she's not particularly useful for the comps I run. With what I have access to, Mona is much better for that. And that Mona's stick, uh, she does fairly light damage, uh for a hydro catalyst user. It's not awful. It's not Barbara tier bad, but it's not great. And her little distracty thingy is just gonna kind of pulse stuff and sit there. But her main gimmick is as you level up her ultimate, it'll gain time on its special effect up to 5 seconds, and it'll put a 5-second debuff on all the enemies around you that makes them take a colossal amount bonus damage as long as they're afflicted by the Omen debuff. And so got it at rank 7 or 8 right now, and it lasts for a full 5 seconds. And Mona's whole job is to come out on the field with a 4 out of 4 Noblesse Oblige set to buff the party's attack by 20% after she uses it on top of it. Put Omen on everything, and then have Ketching or Diluc blow their burst right after to just murderize packs of baby enemies, or put a big dent in packs of medium-sized enemies. And this has been significantly more effective than I was expecting it to be. Even though Mona's artifacts need some serious help, her we're using just a random goblet I had that had pyro damage on it, but it rolled really good on the energy recharge, which is what we want because that's her scaling stat. Like her pocket watch needs help. It's got basically nothing on it that's good. Feather's okay. The flower's okay. The mask needs help. Needs help bad. It rolled its crit rate mask, but and it has a little bit of energy regen in it, but I could definitely do better with it. And they all need leveling up, but I am out of artifacts and low on Mora. Vol has booty short Mona out. So yeah, that was one project. fighting the Hydroculus was uh, find something on
Ugh.
find something on YouTube to watch and let Oz figure it out.
It's such an awful fight.
Yeah, it's just I just let Oz figure it out at this point. I don't care about the lightning damage as long as I don't stand in it and get chain stun. I'm whatever. Oz, just go to town on it. So I let Oz solo the boss while I AFK'd and watched YouTube. Because the boss, aside from the explosions and a couple of the animals that can come out, the ones that do the big hops and what are they? There's I think it's the ducks. Will just murder you.
Yeah, I know there are a couple of animals that are really dangerous. Different people have different opinions on which one is bad, though. I know some people really hate the frogs.
Yeah, they're one of the hoppy types. Them and the tubby birds are the hoppy types. They can do some damage, and the ducks can just MR ducks show up and say, "Oh hi." The swans are bad if you go run up and just sit in melee, but I was using Oz, so I didn't have to worry about that. I would drop Oz and run away. And the rest of the animals are pretty much free. Like you get the pig. Yeah, it's gonna explode when it dies, but it's not gonna do anything if you're even halfway with one eye on the screen. It's just gonna charge around. So yeah, I got the Oceana down to a science for a day and just murdered the crap out of that thing. So that was project number 1. Got Mona the most workable Noblesse Soul Bleach set I could possibly get without going super ham and blowing Primo Gems on refreshes. And now she's totally playable, and I got to test her power in multiplayer, and she worked out pretty good, I think, in the one domain we were farming, where when I could actually remember to push the Mona button before the delete button, things got deleted.
I mean, she works when she works. When she doesn't work, you get insta-gypped.
Yeah, if she is a very very fragile little broke astrologer who will get mushed by anything. However, her little clone has it's like Baron Bunny in that it's got a super powerful taunt on it. And so you can do things like drop this under the Electro Mages when they put up their shield, and for the duration of the taunt, they'll just sit there and waste their time attacking the reflection.
Well, it's not really that. They don't do any attacks when they have the shield up. They just move in your direction of their aggro target. So it will move up to it and sit on it.
Yeah,
And then just like it'll spark, but I don't think that there's any target there.
yeah, it just shocks everything around itself. So as long as you just drop the thing and then run away from it, the Electro Mage will just go hang out with it, and you can just sit in the back and wait for the shield to go away because their shield depletes over time, and you're doing Hydro damage to it, so it's depleting faster. Even though it's only a little bit, it gets that elemental bonus for bopping Electro shields. So yeah, just let Mona's little eyeball and tongue thing get rid of the Electro Mage shield. That worked out pretty good. And yeah, she's been very helpful exploring Inazuma, which is another big motivator to level her, because I'm in Inazuma right now, where Liyue has giant F-off mountain faces that go up all the way to the skyline. Inazuma has islands. And they give you a boat and plenty of places to summon the boat, but you still have to either go back to the boat or go to a summoning node to pull out the boat anytime you want to traverse that way. Or you could use Mona. Because she's the only character I got right now that can zoom me across the water. And I wanted her to at least be able to survive a hit from baby enemies and not be totally useless on the team.
I think your character has an even more hex water movement.
I think it's not Ayaka. Might be Ayaka.
Ayaka's Frost, but
yeah,
I don't remember hearing that about her. It could be.
It's one of the Inazuma girls can turn into icy mist or something when they dash across the water.
But there's one that doesn't. There's one that.
One of the brand new ones. Yeah, one of the new girls from Fontaine, I think, can just straight up walk on water. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked too deep into it. But yeah, that has been a
Neither of us have set foot in Fontaine yet.
yeah. I'm still nowhere near it. But yeah, I got Mona to workable, and she's been a big help in Inazuma, just traversing the place and getting around faster, and spending my time exploring Inazuma. The other project before I get into that was fixing Diluc. Uh, what Resin didn't go to building Mona up to usable, went to making Diluc. I had to completely rebuild him. His set was a holdover set of gladiator artifacts that I had gotten just from farming bosses that rolled pretty good, and they were holdovers from when like my first oranges that he had. So they were really good and gave him a lot of physical damage, but physical damage starts to fall off really, really hard, and it just is not a viable way to do any kind of reasonable damage. Whereas Keshing's hitting for, 2 to 3k with her really fast auto attacks, or basic attacks while infused, and her big infusion burst can hit up to 14. Diluc was hitting for like 5 with his really slow ass Claymore hits, and his damage just was in the toilet. It was and it was only getting worse as new enemies and more physical defense showed up. And so keeping him as a physical character with mostly physical stats, it just wasn't going to work. I had to get him a Pyro Goblet, and I had to, which thankfully I found I had in that pile of Geo crap. I had not a good one, but a workable one. So I had that in laying around and was able to stick that on him. Oh, if I can roll to it. Yeah, so it ain't great. It's got pyro damage, it's got 10.5% crit rate on it, but it's got energy recharge, which is useless for Diluc, defense, and HP, and it rolled really hard on that energy recharge at a whopping 16.8%. So not the best pyro goblet, but it's the best I got. And we're going with a full rebuild here, so we were taking what we could get. Heavy crit damage weighted attack percent hourglass, all for the fire damage set. And the flower's good from memory. Yeah, crit rate, Ellie Mastery, and energy recharge, heavy attack percentage on the flower that it rolled. The flower's the best piece. And attack percent hat with some decent crit rate, but it's all of its level ups went into defense percent. So that's not so hot, but I'll live with it. It was workable, so I took it and took them all to plus 20, and I am now out of Mora and out of freaking fodder artifacts.
Mora. Man, Mora's a freaking trial. The odds of me buying the battle pass are getting higher and higher.
Yeah, I caved and bought it.
All that juicy Mora is just dangled in front of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I caved and bought it. I got the Serpent Spine Claymore as a backup Claymore. Since it's in general just a good fallback option if you not sure what to do with the Claymore character. I decided I'll take one copy of that. And just bought the battle pass for the Mora. I figured I'd gotten $10 worth out of the game. I don't really like spending money on this game, but I've definitely gotten $10 worth in the past few weeks. So I threw in $10 for the battle pass, and that helped me get the stuff moved over and get Diluc rebuilt. And now he does like 8k per swing of Searing Strike, and his ultimate can actually really whop stuff when Mona's Omen's up. So the combo's working much better. But it did take all my resin for the week to accomplish those 2 projects, and then some. I had to blow a few baby resin recharges on the on getting Mona her Ascension stuff. But yeah, in general, it's worked out pretty okay. I now have a fully functional team with I actually have 2 teams that I swap between with only 1 party member difference, in that it's Diluc, Keshing, Barbara, and then either Mona or Official, with them tagging out as I need them. And so I just have both teams set up in the team selector and just swap and quick swap between the 2 teams. And that's worked out pretty good. And has made for perfectly fine exploring Inazuma, and finally making some progress on the islands. And yeah, so that's the character progress. Not a whole lot to talk about there. It's mostly routine Genshin stuff. But I like the way my teams are set up. Getting Mona to be able to make the funny numbers when I get to see them is really fun. just seeing Keshing's ult do a barrage of 5k, 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 5k every like quarter second is really funny. So yeah, that's good. And this seems to probably be workable for quite a while, I think. Um, until I run into something that just is immune to both pyro and lightning, then I'm just up shit's creek. But yeah, we'll eventually fix that with Navia when I can get to Fontaine. But we'll talk about that. So progression in this game. Since we came back, I think we had both stopped at the start of Act 3 for Liyue when we came
Not
back.
quite at the start of it. I'm not quite at the. I'm in the story quest for rebuilding the Ningguang's house.
Okay, so you're after the main, yeah, because we've been beating up a child every week. So
Yeah, he was awfully smug about how easy he was going to have it against us.
yeah, yeah, and then he got whopped. So
Apparently, this is actually a recurring theme. Like he will smugly declare himself to be able to beat somebody up, and he will go full emo and then get whopped.
yeah, so yeah,
Do they give him any backstory? Have you seen anything about his backstory? Like, did you do his like character arc or anything like that?
yeah, I
Like,
did.
'cause it seems like there must be some reason why he's like going full emo as his thing.
His story quest is actually really funny. His character story quest, uh, it 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 is the setup for the quest, so you'll see it when you accept it. His story quest is you bump into him at the Liyue Bank uh, after finding his brother who has smuggled his way cross continent to Liyue to come visit him. But his brother is under the impression that Child is a toy seller because he doesn't want his little brother to know about all the crazy Fatui garbage he does.
Right. So his brother thinks he's on the up and up, but
Yeah, so the whole quest line is Child trying to keep his ruse going.
yeah, I'm like totally not a complete scumbag. Yeah.
Yeah, he does put a lot of importance on taking care of his family to a point where they're spoiled, and you Paimon points this out to him a few times. But yeah, so you get to see a bit of what his deal is in his character story quest. Um, Progression through the game aside from the Liyue stuff. When I very first got back, when I was trying to get my feet back under me, I went to Dragonspine and basically did it in a single evening while I was sitting talking to Ball. Dragonspine is not super huge in terms of explorable area, so if long as you're good at mowing maps in this type of game, you can mow that map pretty quick. For
It
somebody like
seems
Ball,
that
it'll take about 3 days, I have to guess.
I spent I spent only a few minutes in there, but it seemed like it wanted me to carry rocks everywhere though, which wore thin very quickly.
Yeah, it's got a lot of obnoxious mechanics that have to do with taking rocks to big ice to pop the big ice, and needing to stay near fire occasionally and turn on pyres to keep yourself warm. Uh, I'm very glad I did it in one sitting because it kept all the enemies dead, so I could very easily see what parts of the lawn had been mowed by just are there people alive here. But because enemies have like a 12-hour respawn with the daily reset may or may not interrupt that or fudge with it a bit. So yeah, Dragonspine. I wasn't a big fan of Dragonspine as a zone, but it didn't take that long and was not good, but not horribly offensive. Uh, Next, despite my complaining about it, because before I continued on with the main story stuff, my objective was to get all the side quests out of my inventory, as many as I could that were just thrown in there through updates and patches to make it so I could keep track of what I'm actually supposed to be doing. And I can't get rid of the Fontaine ones that are current events, but I can get rid of. I went to go get rid of everything else. So this meant going to Dragonspine first and doing all the crap for that. Next, it was after I finished up the Liyue main story up to go rebuild the Jade Chamber, and got a quest to go to the hole, the big hole, the chasm. At first, I was not taken by the chasm. It was the upper area is
Really?
The upper
It's a
area,
hole in the ground.
yeah, it's just a big ditch at first, and the upper area before you go into the subzone is not super enthralling. It's got there's some moon shoes pads around, and it's a okay mine type area, but it's just a big circle. It's super easy to mow the mow the lawn in, and it's got some decent puzzles, but uh, a few of them feel just odd. I had to remember that geoconstructs could resonate with each other by dropping your geoconstruct next to ones that are already in the world and bopping a thing to send out shockwaves to use the your geoconstruct to act as a connecting point so that more geo stuff can go blow up and start chain reactions above it. That was a fairly common puzzle above ground. There's like 4 or 5 of those. And then the other ones were fairly simple time trial stuff. It was good for getting me back in the swing of how exploration works, though. And then I went into the hole. As you progress the storyline, the hole will open up, its gaping maw suddenly accessible to you, and you jump right in there. And when you first get in there, it's pitch black. Like, your brightness settings can screw with this a bit and make it easier to see than normal, depending on how bright your brightness settings are. But it is dark in there, and you go in the hole, and you start the basic exploration and find all kinds of stuff you can't interact with yet. This clearly come back later when you got a thing, and not too far into the hole, you get a lantern, the lumen lamp or whatever, and you use this thing. Initially, it just has juice and can't do anything with it. But you'll be collecting these big blue crystals, like the crimson agates and dragon spine. You'll get the blue version of them in the hole, and you feed these to the lamp once you unlock the upgrade girl at the camp, who is about a quarter of the way through the quest line in the hole. And you can start feeding these to it, and your lamp will hold more charges, glow brighter, and get the ability to be activated in a giant pulse of light that gives you stamina regen and also purges any puddles of dark goop around that can and that may block doorways or treasure chests or impede the activation of other mechanical devices in the world like time trials or lampposts and stuff. And there'll be little lampposts you can turn on by using one pip of the lamp to, for the next 12 hours, fully refill the lamp whenever you walk by it. And overall, the mechanic is not too cumbersome and feels okay to use. It was not bad at all. The fact that there's so many little lamp posts around and going back to any teleport point fully restocks the lumen lamp feels like a bit too much, and that there's basically no thought in managing your lumen pips. As soon as you get about 4 or 5, you can hold in the bank, and you just will always assume that stupid thing is filled up. And also breaking like any ore in there or picking up random fireflies that down there will just give you a pip of light. So you're basically never not going to have this thing full unless you're just standing in goop. So they do underutilize it a little bit there, but it's otherwise an okay mechanic, and the zone is fairly fun to explore. They do go really overboard on the verticality in some of the rooms, though. There are about half the rooms have 5 layers of verticality to them. Like, and you think you're done with this hole because you don't just go to a Statue of the Seven and unlock the full map of the hole. No. You got to find the map making obsessed girl and progress that quest to a point where she's further down in the cave for you to get the next part of the map. And the cave, it just keeps going. You think you're at the bottom of that hole, and you're just not. It's gonna keep going. It took me a week and some change to get through the hole. I was there for a long time. And basically,
I don't want to go to the water temple.
yeah. Thankfully, it's not that bad to once you're in there and actually exploring. It's just a really big zone, and surprised me with the size of it. And I was getting very sick of the cave aesthetic by the end of it. But given the type of game this game is and how much you're expected to be playing it, the amount of playtime I spent actually in the hole, while a little long, is still okay. So I've warmed up to the hole as I'm not now that I'm not stuck in there. Because if you're like me, when you get to a zone in a game like this, you want to do as much of it as possible before you move on. So I was stuck in that hole until I was as complete with it as I reasonably could be. So yeah, that was that, and I had fun in there. The story's not particularly riveting, but it's clearly shows a step up in their side quest writing. And I didn't know this at the time, but the whole actually came out before Inazuma. And
Wait,
while
when
I
you say before Inazuma, do you just mean
oh
at some
sorry
point before
after
Inazuma, or do you mean
I meant after
okay,
Inazuma, before Sumeru.
okay?
So it was in a patch near the end of the Inazuma patch cycle when Sumeru was about to come out. I did not know this going into the hole, and I'm glad I went in there before my world level ranked up at level 50, because if I go in the hole now, all the enemies are level 92, and
Sounds troublesome.
at my gear level at the time, I would have been completely whopped. So yeah, uh, and in this interim time, I was I was leveling up and building up my Keshing and my official, and trying to get my characters to workable levels for the level 50 world jump, because I knew it was coming, and managed to get them just barely there in time with a whole lot of resin blowing. So and then I finally went to Inazuma, and I've been in Inazuma for 2.5 weeks, just slowly plinking away at progress, just mowing the map a little bit more every day. Uh, there was like one day in the past 2 weeks when I had time to sit down and do an entire island all at once. But it's a pretty big zone with a whole lot of puzzles to sit there and do. And if you're not sitting there looking up a guide for some of them can be a little bit of a brain buster, and you have to sit there and go, I don't get it, until it finally clicks and you go, oh, I get it. So I'm not guiding my way through it. I'm not interactive mapping my way through it. I am marking on the interactive map if a particularly obnoxious electroculus gets found that is way the f out of the way of the world. I'll go mark that on the map, just so when I do go back and do my post zone map mowing check, I know not to check those, and I don't have to waste my time going out in the middle of bum f nowhere. But other than that, I'm not using any kind of guide for it and just taking my time with it and going through it and having fun doing it. I've really enjoyed my time exploring Inazuma. The story is moving very, for the time it was out and the time in between the patches would have been perfect for the pacing. Now it feels a little fast. Like stuff's moving really fast in Inazuma for main story quests. Like it, but if you were playing this at launch with several weeks to months between patches in the Archon quests, this pacing would have been more on point. But now it feels a little fast, but that's about the only complaint I can level with it. They have a genuinely interesting mystery in Inazuma with what's going on with the Raiden Shogun and what has made her go just bananas. Because it still sounds like she's just cray cray, and I don't have a good reason for that yet. I'm still in Act 2 because I keep getting distracted by exploration. But yeah, I've been having a good time with Inazuma, and we'll probably go spend more time in there in the coming week. And since I have fully explored the dang place, I will basically only have the story left. So hopefully, I can get the story done and get on to Sumeru next pretty soon here. But at the same time, I kind of wouldn't mind exploring Inazuma, except for the stupid Fog Island. Just because it's a nice place with a lot of fun puzzles. Oh, the one major downside is the world quest's structure. The first island is fine. Most of the other side quest chains are fine. But every other single island that you go to in Inazuma seems to have a aggressively time-gated world quest on it. Like real world day wait time gating on it. And you may think, oh, that's not that big a deal. You know, you're taking forever to go through the zone. Anyway, yes. But here's the deal that slows down everything. Some of these quests have a lot of dialogue in them, and if you're even trying to pay passing attention to the story in them, especially the stupid Misty Island one, they will not shut up talking in that quest. The dialogue is about 3 times as long as it needs to be, and you have got to do the quest to completion for the to move the time gate forward. So you feel whether or not it makes sense or not, and whether or not you could just put it off to later. When you're doing these world quests that you know are time gated, you're going to want to do the current quest to completion before you leave the area, and this will just put a halt on everything you're doing. I hate time gating like this for this reason.
That I guess on one hand you could say, well, they're experimenting with a lot of different ways of doing mechanics. On the other hand, they seem to have an awful lot of misses.
Yeah,
Like, and not even misses that like, oh well, I guess this sounded like a good idea on paper, but it turned out not to be. No, like misses like any person playing your game could tell you, don't do this, please don't do this.
please don't make sheer cold a thing. Please don't do time gating. They did. Man, the chasm mostly is hits. The moon shoes are fun. The lantern light works pretty good. It's not the greatest mechanic, but I like playing with it a little bit. You get to use it. Uh, but yeah, the time gating of the quest in Inazuma, the dragon spine, weather everything, just yeah, it needs. They have a lot of misses with their experiments, and it's very clear they're experimenting with some of these zones because every zone has a thing. After Liyue, there is no just like Mondstadt and Liyue where you're just running between Hilichurl Camp number 27. So some of them, so the chasm's okay, and that's 1 out of 3 so far with the gimmicks there. Inazuma does have one gimmick though that I do really like, and that I didn't like it at first. It took a minute to grow on me, and part of that is because it's got a really wacky input for the controller when you're first starting. Uh, so you'll find these little electro balls around Inazuma that you pick up, and these serve a few functions. The first one is to negate lightning-based environmental damage. So anytime you find a source of lightning-based elemental damage in the world, if it's just a little bit of passive damage, you could tank it, or you can go look for a chain of these little baubles throughout the area to just fully negate the damage, and use that to route your path through while you're exploring. The other function is to open gates. You'll find barriers of electrical energy that you can use these things to pass through, and these barriers will be of varying intensity. And depending on how many sigils you feed to the Sakura tree by just finding miscellaneous treasure chests throughout, every treasure chest has at least 1 sigil in it, and they give you more depending on how big they are. I think up to a maximum of 4. You feed these, instead of using them to buy useless crap at the shop in town, you feed them to the tree to rank up these things so they can pass you through more barriers and absorb more environmental damage. The third effect of the 4 major effects is they rectify the problem Liyue has. So in Liyue, for instance, you could be playing Vol's character and be stuck in Geoslime Land. And there is no benefit to using a Geo character in Liyue. There's one enemy type here that benefits from having a Geo character, and it's the roly-poly dudes.
Technically speaking, they do have a higher rate of puzzles that require a geoconstruct.
Yes. So
that's about it.
Yeah. So to rectify that problem, they have included these little baubles that also, while you're carrying them, will buff the damage and assist with bonus attacks any electric character you have on the field. So if the enemy is not immune to electricity, their damage is compensated for by having one of these little electro baubles with you. And they start off only lasting 15 seconds, but last as long as 30 seconds per pickup once you rank up the tree enough. And the last and biggest and most impactful part as far as exploration goes in Inazuma is these things allow you to Spider-Man. So you will pick them up, and sometimes there will be little grappling points that are just in the world that are always there, and sometimes they will spawn them for a fixed duration after you pick up a bauble. It does not indicate which baubles spawners will make these little grapple hooks appear or not, but usually you start to be able to intuit it just based on the layout of the area around you. Like, oh, it is perfectly natural for them to include grapple points at that location that is clearly, going over a gap upwards slightly to a very flat plateau up there. And there just happens to be this little bobble right at the base of it across the gap. Stuff like that. And this part took a bit of getting used to, but as soon as it clicked with me, I'm running into these things to Spider-Man everywhere all the time. So what they do is when you pick up the bobble, if there's any nearby grapple points, you'll see a little lightning tethering you to the grapple point. And what you have to do on controller is you pull up the shortcut wheel and you hit square, and this will launch you in the direction of the grapple point. Now, if it's just one of them, that's where it ends, and your glider automatically activates when you're at the peak of your fling from pulling on the grapple hook. If there are a chain of them, however, I did not realize why they did this until later, and it stopped being annoying when I did. You have to take your finger off of the shortcut wheel as you're traveling and press shortcut wheel square as soon as you're tethered to the next one in the chain, and repeat this for every step in the chain. Now, this seems really obnoxious, and at first it takes some getting used to, but it actually doesn't feel that bad to use. And it may do this intentionally, it may do this by accident, but what it forces you to do is keep your eyes open and forces you to pay attention to what direction the tethers are tethering, because sometimes there are multiple tethers in a grab chain that go in different directions, and you may want to grab specific ones. And you can go all the way to the tip of your jump, but as you get more comfortable with this thing, forcing you to stop and really look for when the tethers are, and be very deliberate with this double button press on each grab as you're Spider-Man through the air, makes it feel a lot better in terms of decision making in real time for action type element in the game, which is stuff I enjoy in action and exploration games. So they grew on me, and I've really enjoyed playing with the Spider-Man tethers. And yeah, that's been Inazuma. There ain't much to talk about with the story with it, and I kind of don't want to spoil it anyway because Vol ain't there yet. So yeah, I think I'll leave Inazuma there, and that's been my Genshin time. That's I've been not super busy at work, but getting things back up and running for the start of the year, and getting back into the swing of a normal work cycle now that Christmas and New Year's is over. That's so I really haven't had time to sit down and play more than what I have in Genshin, but I have got some good Genshin time in because it hasn't been super heavy yet. And yeah, I've been having a good time with that. So that's where we're at there.
Right.
So, okay, we have an email. Zerthus got mad at me when I read it last time.
Well, as soon as I finished killing the Electro Hypostasis, I could read it. Unfortunately, it's taking longer than I expected because my ultimate decided it was going to attack a different target to me, which is unfortunately one of the drawbacks of Ningguang, is that sometimes your Jade screen doesn't agree with you on the best strategy.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm bubbling my way over there. I did not come with the ult pre-juice, so I cannot firebird it.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Where are we at? Here we go. Dear No Excuses. First, good to see that the last episode didn't get swallowed by the big trucks of the internet. You guys made up for the missing episode with a 5.5-hour podcast. Mini rantathon, yay. Anyway, last time you asked why Undertale was such a phenomenon, and honestly, I'm not quite sure. My first order reading of the situation is that the game was simply just fun. The bullet time dodge freshened up combat a bit, as well as allowing for more storytelling via the attacks of the monsters. Case in point, none of Asgore's attacks track you. Undertale has also had a great soundtrack and what kids these days would call a vibes. The game was simply charming. You can pet the dog. In fact, you can win every dog fight just by throwing the stick. Second order reading might be the whole meta-narrative thing. From the number of hidden stuff in the game files to how the soundtrack is structured to the boss fight of the normal and bad ending. The amount of bullshit Sans pulls is truly remarkable. Speaking of meta stuff, play One Shot. Third order reading would be leftist and furry degeneracy. There's not much more to it. Anime addicted, gay fish and all. Serithus.
Yeah, I'm not gonna read more into that.
I'm
But
not
yeah,
really sure how to. I'm glad I'm that innocent.
so yeah, it's it you can't get away from the last point you made in any topic these days. So I don't count that as unique to Undertale because they will attach to stuff arbitrarily.
I felt like that Undertale gave me the impression of being a game for furries, like fundamentally.
Yeah, there
Like,
it does have that very furry to pseudo furry aesthetic on a lot of its characters.
well, that's the thing is that furries have a very targeted media tends to have that slightly twee, grotesquely childish aspect to it because furries are disproportionately homosexuals, disproportionately pedophiles, disproportionately all of the weird degeneracy that you can possibly think of, and this has sort of like got the sort of the faint scent of all of that about it. Like it doesn't contain any of that material necessarily so much as it is like calibrated for accommodating the fantasies that will accompany the setting,
Yeah,
because goodness knows these people do nothing but fantasize and write horrible fan fiction about things.
didn't the
But
game like have some Patreon ward backer where somebody got to insert their persona into the game?
I have no idea.
That sounds like a true story.
I mean, it could be, but I mean, if all you need to do is look at like all of these fan games that Seraph is constantly talking about, how many of them are made by people who are literally get done for pedophilia? Like the short answer is all of them. For to a first approximation, all of them are made by pedophiles.
Do you care if I go fishing in your fishing holes and steal your fish?
No, because I haven't started. I didn't even know there was a fishing hole there.
I didn't know I could interact with your fishing holes, but apparently I can.
But yeah, like it's definitely degenerate, and it's even if it isn't degenerate, even if it were not degenerate, it is clearly made to appeal to subcultures that are, because it sort of it fits them like a glove in a lot of ways. But yeah, as for the others, like it being a fun game, like I mean, there are lots of games that are fun. That doesn't make them a phenomenon, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Like let's take a game that is fun and competently made, that's a small scale, executed really well, has a unique graphical style. Let's say, was it Hi-Fi Rush?
Yeah.
That nails all of those points. But it's not a phenomenon. There are lots of people that like it, but it's not a phenomenon. It's not. It didn't become part of internet culture, and I think that that's really the key to it. Things become part of internet culture by having a socket to fit in, basically, and the disgusting, degenerate, sexual perversion fandoms are that socket for that game.
You wanna
Even if
don't think too hard about that, folks.
even if it is not like built out of that material, it's the right shape to fit into that fandom. It's like got all of the ammunition required for them to distort it into what they want. Because like that's what it really is. It's like it's a product of internet culture, and it fits right back into internet culture in a way that Hi-Fi Rush is a standalone game which has a unique visual style, fun mechanics. Lots of people liked it and enjoyed it. It's a high quality game. It's built around rhythm and music. Like it's got lots of the stuff, even if it's not necessarily the most innovative game. It's certainly got innovations in it. I'm not going to comment on the storytelling because I don't know anything about the storytelling, but as far as I can tell, that wasn't the main objective of that particular exercise. But it's not a meme,
Yeah.
and Undertale is a meme.
There are some media products that have more ability to make themselves memes just by their nature, but you really can't control what the internet latches onto. You can try to give yourself more meme points but it's really hard to read this kind of stuff because there's no telling what the Zoomers are going to latch onto next. So I don't know if we can answer our own question last week of why it's a phenomenon because we're not Zoomers.
The thing is that the thing that I think is most mysterious about it, really, though, is not that it was a phenomenon, but that it was able to defy the normal principles and become a phenomenon, despite the fact that it was very conspicuously made to be one. Because normally forced memes don't take.
Yeah,
Undertale is the embodiment of a forced meme, and it did take. Which is why I think that the only way that could be the case is if it was very precisely targeted at the particular communities who are most likely to attach to some property and then make it theirs in a very, very personal way.
yeah. I think the more I remembered the game and thought about it, the game is way gayer than I thought it was. On memory.
That's
I
impressive because you thought it was pretty gay.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of gay undertones and overt overtones in that game. I think it hit the nail on that head at a time for the internet to really latch onto it.
Yeah, I don't know for sure what it is. It's definitely hooked into the degeneracy thing, but it's certainly not without its charm, because I know I've seen the way various people have reacted to it. Not every single one that likes it is a degenerate. So there's definitely something about it that people find charming, but lots of things are charming and they don't become a phenomenon. What is different about this one? That's the question. I don't think that this game is a smash hit on so many axes that would sort of manifest the phenomenon in a direct fashion. Like, it's possible that it's just a combination of factors that happens to hit just right, but I don't think it's a combination of factors that happens to hit just right in abstract. I think it happens to hit the right community to turn it into a phenomenon just right. So there's lots of people that like it independently of context, but it's got some things that make it a shibboleth for a particular fandom to like it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, liking it as a point of identity for certain groups.
Yeah,
And therefore, even if under normal circumstances they would only kind of like it, the fact that it grants entry to a particular group makes it more likable. This is just thinking out loud, trying to shape a perspective on it by talking about it. But the thing is that liking Undertale in and of itself is an identity to certain people, sort of the way that liking Cape Shit is an identity to certain people, and that point where it becomes an identity draws more people into it.
yeah. You're
Because
more.
see, the thing is, if you look at like Marvel movies, for instance, none of them are good enough to justify being a phenomenon. But collectively, they do become a phenomenon because of the people that make it their identity to be interested in them.
Yeah, the more you get people at that level of devotion to whatever your piece of media is, you will get them to you'll get their friends to want to know what they're talking about, and you can really expand your reach that way. And because it's so important to these people, you'll get continuous exposure. The more of that type there are, I'm thinking out loud too. So yeah, I don't really know. I would have to stop and really think about it. But
Can you help me kill this ice flower? I need bosses.
okay, yeah, I can help you walk ice flower. I'm just fishing. Uh,
You
it's,
just tour the bosses and murder them for no reason because I need to get my boss kill count up before the end of the week.
uh, open. But yeah. So yeah, it's something that I could think about, but I'm always a little hesitant to think too hard about why something becomes popular. If it's something like like
Because
Undertale.
usually the reason is really, really dumb, ultimately.
That or really, really gross.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think something becoming a phenomenon tends to be a kind of a critical mass thing. Like it's not going to start out as a phenomenon, but it will become so in due course by means of reaching a critical mass of people who agree that it is good and the people who want to be a part of that group. And if a critical mass of furry types, let's say, decide that this is the cool thing that furries like, then all of the furries will decide they like it because they're all desperate to be part of the community.
Yep. Like fireweed.
And you see a lot of these things like this, like things that will become like. Cause I have a friend who does art and like as a hobby just draws things, and there are mostly degenerates in art circles, right? Like artists are a mess, generally speaking. And what you encounter in those communities is that phenomena move through like fads on a regular basis. Something will just be the accepted thing that everybody likes and has to like. And it might be a personality online that everybody follows. It might be a game that everybody plays. It might be a TV show that everybody watches. But it is expected that everybody involved likes and participates in these things. And all it takes is either a critical mass of people or a particular taste maker to decide that it is the done thing.
Yeah. So all right. Uh, I don't really have anywhere to go on else to go on this one. So if unless you got anything else, I think we'll move on from from that one.
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
All right. Thank you for the email, Serathus. We are at 2.5 hour. No, are we? Yeah, 2.5 hours. But let's see here.
You wanted
Uh,
to talk about some of the Genshin announcements and stuff, and
yeah, we
the
can move.
quickest announcement is that we finally got a date on the Blue Archive anime. Like, that's
Oh,
actually happening for realsies.
yeah. For some reason, I
And
thought we already had a date for.
no, we had confirmation that was definitely coming out, but we didn't have a season when it was going to be released. But it's coming out for spring, you people, autumn, my people.
All right. So yeah,
It looks like they're going to do Foreclosure Task Force, which
I,
is what I expected.
yeah, I think that's probably their best bet as well. So so yeah, that'll be fun to go through. Let's see. Uh, any do I I think we covered pretty much everything we that one time we talked about this. For stuff that we're hopeful with and the routes they could take. I think doing Foreclosure Task Force is probably their best bet. It's
Yeah, well, I mean, it is the introduction, really. And I'm just hoping that they do it well enough to get more stuff greenlit because there's way more content than Foreclosure Task Force that I would like to see.
yeah, and Foreclosure Task Force is a setup arc.
Yeah, like I would love to see like a full, thorough treatment of the Eden Treaty arc. I can't imagine how you would structure it, but I would like to see it.
I'm wondering how they'll do Sensei.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a good answer or a right answer. That's the hardest thing about doing the adaptation. There were a lot of people who were wondering if they would find a way to sidestep it, but I don't know. They could just do a full-fledged character. Occasionally they do that. Like they did often the most common approach is sort of like a hollow character who is like nominally a character but doesn't really do or say all that much. And they did that in the Arknights anime. Like the Doctor doesn't say very much. And he doesn't basically Amiya is his interactions with people for the most part. The problem is that Sensei is much more central to the story than most gacha game protagonists. Like
Uh,
he's the axis around which everybody else orbits in
right,
one way or another.
Briarweed's up.
So it's sort of, you can't really leave him out. So there are I've seen it done in Girls Frontline, that they just wrote a character to be the protagonist. It's not a very deep character, but it's deep enough to carry off what they need in order to give some emotional momentum to the story at all. So yeah, in that case, it's like, oh well, they tell a very simplified story wherein the role of the player protagonist character is to become overly attached to the tactical dolls, because they're supposed to be to most of the PMC's commanders. The tactical dolls are just weaponry, and that's what they were built for. That's what they're meant to be. And gradually, player protagonist stand-in becomes overly attached to them and treats them like people, and then this causes problems of its own because she can't see them as consumables anymore, and starts to treat them like real people. But you could probably go that route, because it's sort of like you can use a light touch with your characterization, not to tread on any toes, because everybody's going to have their own idea of who Sensei is, since it's who you play at. But yeah, I don't know how they would do it. I think that writing a light character is the easiest way to go. You can't go all the way to a hollow character, and you can't write him out entirely. I mean, there are some stories that just write them out entirely, like what one was it? This I had one in mind a second ago and I've lost it. That they almost, but not completely, wrote the character of the player protagonist out. I mean, I don't know if in right, in what's it called? Fleet Girls, Kantai Collection. The anime basically writes the admiral out. Like, you're not there, essentially. The you person, even though the gacha has all the usual things like oath system and all that, and relationship dialogues and stuff, you're basically written out of the story. They still have Shikikana's still present, but you never see his face. Occasionally you might see the back of his head once in a while when the story takes place in the office or whatever, but the story is about the interactions between the different fleet girls. Doesn't really involve the player protagonist in any way. Like, it still forms a pivotal motivation for Fubuki, for instance, in that anime, but it's not part of the plot in a sense. It's just like, oh well, Fubuki's goal is to live up to the player protagonist expectations, and now goes off to have her interactions with the rest of the story, and that's about as much as they do there. That's essentially writing the character out. But because Sensei is different, because Sensei makes the decisions, Sensei is the single most powerful actor in Kivotos, because of the fact that he's the only one with so many cross-cultural alliances, and he's got pull with so many important people. You can't get rid of him. He needs to act. And he needs to act in a more substantive way even than, say, Fujimaru Ritsuka in FGO, who is written in, say, Babylonia as a very flat character. Not completely hollow, but not fully characterized either. Just quite flat. I would have liked it if they had used all of the Charlie Swaglord options from that chapter, because some of them are hilarious. But
the fact that he didn't go that route with Ketz made me super sad my first time watching it.
Yeah, the reality is that they probably decided that would add an alienating amount of character for the people who just don't play Ritsuka that way, who don't choose the lulzy option every time. So yeah, there are a variety of different ways they can go. We'll just have to wait and see what they do in the end.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of that, though, we didn't touch on. I not touched it very much. I logged in, but that does remind me of something in the current Final Fantasy patch. So I logged in, did Hildebrand because everybody wanted to do the trial, and that's it. That's all I've done. And in the Hildebrand quest, no, I did do the trial.
Oh, you did do the trial.
Yeah, it's part of Hildebrand. So we did the Hildebrand trial, and and that's where I stopped. But you know how in 14 there's usually the dialogue choices are fairly non-consequential. They don't matter. They're not going to impact cutscene very much, if at all. For some,
Froth and foam.
yeah, there's that one. There is a more than froth and foam tier, just record scratch option in the Hildebrand questline, and it'll be very obvious where it is. You just have to go totally out of character for most people's impression of the Warrior Light. And it just there's I don't know what it looks like normally, but there's no way it plays out the same.
Did you and Abo pick the same thing?
He didn't remember.
Well, it can't be that important then.
Yeah, well, here's my thought: is the other dialogue option is standard Warrior Light option, but one of them is clearly the funny option, so he must have picked the normal one. If he didn't remember it, because it was such a huge departure from the tone of the scene and everything going around on it, that if he had picked the funny option, he would have known it.
Aren't we talking about Hildebrand? Don't you always pick the funny option in Hildebrand? Is there even a non-funny option in Hildebrand?
Oh, there's like standard Warrior of Light option, and then, actually, I think I'll do this instead. But yeah. So yeah, that's what that reminded me of, and I wanted to bring that up before I forgot because it will fade from my memory.
There are
quick.
there are a lot of both types in Honkai Star Rail. There's lots of opportunities for you to give a solemn nod, and there's also lots of opportunities for you to actually let's just do this insane thing instead. And sometimes they will just railroad you back on track by telling you to stop being a retard. But sometimes they will just have you do something insane.
Yeah. So yeah,
But there's a lot of that, and there's actually achievements for things like, they're like inconsequential minor achievements that you get within your first couple of hours of playing the game. But they'll have things like hold on, I went to the
wrong weed.
I didn't go to any weed. I went to a totally different place somehow. The inconsequential achievements that you'll get within the first couple of hours playing the game, but they actually have achievements for things like picked the serious option X many times, picked the silly option X many times, picked the ridiculously enthusiastic option X many times, like that sort of thing.
Oh, whoops! I'm sorry, official. I forgot to push the plunging attack button, so you took all that to the face. So yeah, it's it's interesting. They've just I'm now remembering that they didn't pick the fun options with cats in the anime. I don't even remember exactly what the line was, but I remember thinking there's no way you can't not pick that.
Yeah, that was the For Justice line was my favorite, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
When you're doing the plancha. But yeah, it's sad, but that is the way it is. They've got to conform with what
gotta appease the boring people.
Yeah, that is how it be. That they've got to. Well, it's not really those. It's not the boring people that they're trying to appease. It's the whales. The whales who are like really overly attached to particular characters. Like there was a. I'm not saying that this is necessarily a good example of where players shouldn't have reacted poorly, because I think it's fine for them to react poorly. But we don't need the fireweed. I just told you I got all of my boss kills.
Oh, okay.
There was a situation because Girls Frontline 1 is dying, and there is a Girls Frontline 2. There's a really, really popular character who is the tactical doll for the standard main battle rifle of the Chinese PLA. It's a bullpup rifle. I can't remember what it's called. But the character that represents that one is very popular. She's a, she's a particular archetype. I don't know how to describe her quickly, but it doesn't really matter for the purpose of this conversation because it's non-specific. But the character, basically there's a time skip between Girls Frontline 1 and Girls Frontline 2. I haven't played Girls Frontline 2. I don't really intend to. But basically the PMC that you work for disbands, and then 10 years pass, and then the story picks up again, and you find out what have the tactical dolls have entered society as sort of like semi-normal people type of thing, and are basically trying to live their lives even though they're war robots. And basically the one that I'm talking about goes off and becomes a pop star. And when you encounter her again, the people mind the dialogue for this character, and she mentions some particular NPC in the story, some particular character in the story, quite a lot, as being so basically he's taken up an important role in her life as probably like her assistant or a manager or something, as she's a pop star now or whatever. And because so many players had waifued this character, there was a massive outcry that how can she cuck us like this? Why is she so obsessed with this guy now we've never heard of, that he didn't do anything for her. We were so loyal to her, and we swore an oath to be together forever, whatever weird crap people do. Basically people were really, really, really attached to this character. And when she was introduced, having had a pre-written life outside of what took place within the imaginations of the people that had waifued her, it basically caused the game to implode. Like, the number of people that boycotted it was massive, and it's doubtful if it will recover. They removed a lot of those lines of dialogue as a result, and replaced them with something generic. Actually, no, it wasn't what they did. They replaced the character with a female character instead, causing all of the lines to take on a different sort of tone. But it wasn't enough for people because they felt like they'd been cucked.
They bought their duckies, and now they can't sleep with them because it feels weird.
Yeah, basically. That's what it boils down to. And yeah, so giving too much character to outside of the imaginations of the audience in a game, in an IP like this, is very risky, which is why they flatten out the player protagonist characters most of the time.
Yep. So yeah, there's that. Let's see. I think we've stretched that one as thin as the taffy will stretch. Let's see.
You still haven't talked about the Genshin releases that you
Yeah, I
wanted
was trying to pull all that up while I was pseudo auto running to the next fishing point. Let's see. Let me just lose aggro on these guys. Okay. Genshin Impact. I actually have better notes on this than the websites do. I grab screenshots. There we go. So we've got a few things coming up in Genshin 4.4. Is the Lantern Rite event, which is the one, like, the every gacha game's got one or two big events a year. This is one of the two that Genshin has. I forget what the
never forget.
Yeah. And this is Genshin's, where I think we are guaranteed a free 10 pull in the during it too, at least once. So not as generous as Pinecone and its 10 free 10 pulls.
Never forget.
But they do for Genshin, that's incredibly generous. And I run past the pool? No, it's for the south. And yeah, we know what characters are going to be headlining the wishes for the event. We know the new character that's been announced for it, and yeah, this is basically going to be a time to come back and get some resources and some free pulls in, and see what you can do to shore up your account a little bit. you're getting and we mentioned before, you're getting a free 4-star during the Lantern event. Any Liyue character, which is nice. Vol's gonna probably wind up going with
The Opera Girl,
another. By that he means another copy of Ningguang.
probably. I don't know. Like, I think that the Opera Girl is very appealing in her design. I like her, but it all depends if whether I decide that she's also going to be useful, because I could always just get another Ningguang.
So yeah, there's that. I don't know if there's event participation requirements to meet that or how that works, but it's a 4-star. Come on, MiHoYo, just give it to him. You just gave Dr. Ratio for free.
Yeah, but the thing is that the players paid for that. Like, the Doctor Ratio was the bribe in order to win something, I believe.
Oh, the Game Award stuff, right? So yeah, okay. Come on,
Like,
MiHoYo.
you gotta pick up your game, Genshin players.
Fun
You
fact:
gotta win some awards.
if a critter like a mud frog or something comes hopping past you while you're fishing, you can still pick up the frog while you're in the
Nice.
middle of fishing. As I just found out. Anyway, as for the character banners that'll be up for the event, the big headliner is the first banner that has Nahida on a rerun, who is
The Dendro character.
yeah. If you want to turn a Dendro team on, it's you can do it with some of the others, but if you want to actually have it be good, it's go Nahida or go home. And the other one is your girl Cloud Retainer, also known as the obnoxious bird that hates you. And we don't know anything about her yet, other than she can jump real good. Looks like she's got like a triple jump or something. So yeah, my least favorite of the Adepti from Liyue is now a waifu. She has glasses, and she invested in the plus knocker stat, and she wears very tight clothes. But she is also the most annoying of the Adepti, so I probably won't be pulling for her.
What element is she?
Animo.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So she's definitely going to be hard to use.
Yeah. I mean, the other headliner, for after those two banners are up, you have Zhao and Yaimiko. And Zhao, despite being Animo, is really good. If only because he could spam plunging attacks in his super mode.
Is Yaimiko connected to Yae Sakura in any way?
Don't know yet. She has made a cameo appearance saying, "Oh, it's not my time to be part of the story yet, teehee," and disappearing. That's at the point I'm at. But yeah, Cloud Retainer could be another Zhao, or she could just be the big booby Chinese librarian. But yeah, I've decided to try and save up for Nahida just to have the option for a Dendro team. My resources are not good. We are, I can tell you, we are at 7,214 Prima Gems. That's not even halfway, but I think we're at like 40 pity on the limited banner from the 10 pulls I've thrown at Mama Raiko from like leveling up the trees and stuff.
We're still assuming pity carries over, and I'm not 100% confident.
Yeah. So
because I've never hit pity before, because I've never got, despite the fact that I've pulled tons of times, I've never gotten a pity character. So my confidence level is very low.
yeah. So there's that. And Nahida, there's a phrase that goes around the community for Nahida with my girl
Hello,
at 10.
FBI.
No, it's my girl at 10, but she is 10.
Yes.
That
is the thing.
Only true if talking about gameplay. Also, I don't have any of the short female characters for getting under stuff. they are a problem when actually playing the game. I already have problems switching between Keqing and Diluc, where if the enemy Keqing gets too wedged under the enemy, I can't pull Diluc out because Diluc's too fat. But having the small female model is handy in some exploration areas. You can squeeze through some gaps that are more obnoxious, even though you got to swim more with them. And I just don't have one other than Yao Yao.
I've got Klee, who has the unique problems of her own.
Yeah. So yeah, I will probably attempt to save up for Nahida. I don't know how well that's gonna go. There's a limit to my luck, and I think I blew it all on Navia. And I also blew all the resources. I also blew every bit of my resources on Navia. Like, I had nothing left in the tank.
Unfortunately, you cannot get Mora in the gacha.
Yeah. Like, I've this is the thing, right? With this game, it incentivizes planning ahead so hard because of the raw amount of resources you have to invest, unless you're like either a mega whale and you have unlimited free time.
Presumably, they just want you to give in and wail.
Like, they got me to give in Battle Pass, but that's about as far as I'm willing to go. So yeah, that's all coming up, and it looks like a pretty good update. The big highlighter of the patch notes, whole lot of quality of life crap. They're fixing a bunch of the furnishing menus. They mentioned specifically the crafting and the shop search features are getting implemented. So instead of just a big long list of vomit, you can sort it now. And they said there's other crafting stuff in there I didn't look too much about because I don't really care about building a house in this game. My house is a Bitcoin farm with just a giant mountain of rocks in the backyard that exist only to generate more realm currency. So there's that, and yeah, it'll be nice. I've still got so much to do, and it's taken me a month to clear out 2 little subzones and one of the 3 missing zones that I hadn't completed yet, and I'm still not done with it. I've still got the whole Inazuma main story quest from Act 2 onwards to do.
And then Sumeru, and then Fontaine.
Yes. So still plenty to do. And but the big thing is especially because I hit adventure rank 50, and all my characters can now be taken to cap. All my resources have just evaporated. And having a event that is known for being generous in its resource rewards show up right now I would probably run out of gas to keep playing the game if this was not the case. So it comes at a good time. So yeah, that's the Genshin Impact 4.0 update. Not a fan of Cloud Retainer at all. She got an okay design, but Hot Chinese Librarian is nice, but she is such an obnoxious character. I just don't care.
I guess I don't really remember her well enough to find her obnoxious. Like, she's a bit high-handed, but all of the Adepti are. So
for some reason, she just rubs me extra the wrong way. They're all haughty and holier than thou. This is my mountain. Get off, you pleb. But for some reason, Cloud Retainer just seems worse than all of them.
You biased against cranes or something?
I don't know.
Oh no, because there's more than one crane, isn't there?
Oh yeah, there's another one. Well, Madam Ping's nice. She's an Adepti, I think. I don't know what her animal form is, but she just kind of hangs out in town and makes teapots.
Yeah, that is what she do. So there's also a new story trailer has come out for Honkai Star Rail, and it is like this is the thing about Honkai Star Rail is that most of the time it is just so like unapologetically 14-year-old edgelord. Like it just leans into it real hard. It's actually kind of endearing, really. Like it's just like so edgy. You try not to cut yourself on all that edgy. Like just go watch the story trailer if you want to see what I mean. The entire thing is like a chuny fantasy. And it's entirely purposeful and played completely straight as well. You see the same thing if you look at a lot of the character trailers, like if you look at, say, Kafka's trailer, character promo, like in any other context, that would be unbelievably cringed. And in this context, it is still unbelievably cringe. But because it is being like, totally unabashed about it, it's still sort of charming.
Like it knows what it is and it's going to do that thing.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, this is supposed to be a weeb fantasy anyway, so we might as well just lean right into the tuning of it. But yeah, so the story trailer is basically an introduction to the key figures of the Annihilation Gang, which has been mentioned in game a few times. The Annihilation Gang is basically they're devotees of Nanook, the Aeon of Destruction. But as far as anybody knows, Nanook doesn't give a toss about them. More or less, they just set fire to things on principle. They're led by the Ifrit Duke Inferno, and there are a whole bunch of weirdos and misfits and generally violent ne'er-do-wells. That is basically the closest thing to an always chaotic enemy. It was chaotic evil enemy as the setting has. Like most of the factions are chiefly focused on like, oh well, they want to follow the Aeon's path, and technically speaking, that's what the Annihilation Gang are also all about. It's just that the Aeon's path for the Annihilation Gang is being always chaotic evil. That's how you be a good follower of Nanook. Not that Nanook cares. So, yeah, I suggest you watch it if you want to see something that's incredibly like Chunibyo cringe. It's quite entertaining just to see how hard they lean into it. But it's also, of course, one of those opportunities for them to preview the new batch of characters that are going to be making their way to the gacha before long. Lots of people are already hype about it, so yeah.
So yeah, that's all I had for our news.
That's all you got.
Yeah,
That's all you got.
I did not do much news digging. It just didn't cross my mind this week that I need to get it done. Usually it jumps on me either Saturday morning or Friday afternoon if we don't have anything. But it totally slipped my mind this week.
Yeah, I just didn't see anything of particular interest to me this time round. It was it's been a bit of a quiet week on most accounts. But yeah, that is what it is. It's better to have a quiet week than a week full of stupid crap, I guess. Although stupid crap gives us more content. But generally speaking, lately, stupid crap has just been localization teams and voice actors misbehaving.
Yeah. We did have a interesting discussion with some voice acting in Honkai that spurred it with about the quality of female voice actors in the dubbing industry.
In Honkai Star Rail, the female voice actors just seem to be quite bad. They're just like generically bad. Like this is not one of those. This is not one of those. I don't really like how this character is voiced things. This is like this character is literally poorly acted. That they've done a bad job, and that's all that you can really say about it. Yeah. This was spurred on by comparisons between the other regions' voice acting for the Crown of Mundane and Divine event, the little pudding creatures that Rowan May creates on accident, and then because she's such an autist, runs away instead of dealing with their crippling emotional attachment to her. But the voice acting is basically that one of them is basically sobbing because it feels abandoned by its creator. But instead of that, Like all of the voice acting is done reasonably well and reasonably like on mood. Like it's done correctly for what they're trying to do. Except the English female voice actor, which is just a complete atrocity, and it sounds like they're laughing rather than crying.
Yeah, that's what I said when you sent me the clip.
Yeah, because that's the immediate impression everybody gets, because it's just so poorly acted. It just doesn't sound like what it's supposed to at all.
Yeah, and this whole uh, and Vol pointing this out to me got me thinking. Even of the dub actors that I do like, none of them are girls. Not a single one.
Yeah, it
Like,
really seems like the most that the woman can manage is passable.
yeah, like I had to stretch to say Kira Buckland's okay in most of the stuff she's in, but she always sounds like 2B no matter what she does. And that was me really having a brain strain to think about it. Like there's plenty of male voice actors that I think are just genuinely good. Chuck Huber, Vic Mignogna, Crispin Freeman, Johnny Young Bosch, Justin Cook's pretty good in most of the stuff he's in. Like there are good male voice actors in the dubbing industry, even if they don't get as many jobs as they should. Chuck Huber and Vic Mignogna because they're
As all the jobs are going to Bryce Papenbrook.
yeah. In those whose case, it's because they're white Christians. But I don't know if Chuck Huber's a Christian, but he's definitely a white man that's conservative, based on his Twitter feed. But yeah, there are good male voice actors who I'll be like, oh, I know that guy. He's good for this role. I'll enjoy hearing his voice. There's nobody like that for the girls in dubbing, and in the absolute worst case scenario, you get like Jamie Marchi.
Yeah, yeah. Like who constantly rails against the patriarchy, but exclusively plays like fan service characters.
Yeah, just if you ever find you as the listener, because I know Vol won't do this, but if you as the listener ever get in your head after seeing Jamie Marchi go on a tirade on Twitter that maybe she's not as bad as everybody makes her out to be, go watch the performance that she gives Junko Inoshima in the Danganronpa dub of the anime. You will want to shoot yourself.
She's just not good at her job, but because she says the right things and has the right opinions, she ends up, getting treated like some kind of luminary.
This one fish keeps running away from the bait. There he goes. You missed a lot of Culises in this little spot I'm at. By the way, I see like 2 of them on the map.
Well, I haven't explored this area, so I filled in the map, but that was all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see Culises. I'm very attuned to the presence of the Culis right now. So yeah,
I can't do this combat challenge because I don't have any good fire characters.
I will come. I will come delete, or rather, I will come Diluc.
It's just one of those many situations in which Diluc is the automatic solution to everything.
Actually, I'll
So
probably come.
the Dendro slimes keep going underground, and you can only get them out with fire. But that means I've got to try and land Klee's fire shot on them.
Yeah, just there while I find my Diluc. There we go.
Kill the Dendros first. If they go underground, it'll take forever to get them out again.
So yeah. So yeah, that was just me carrying over last night's discussion to what I was thinking about while we're doing the show. Oh, there's a time trial up here. Not a combat one, but so yeah. I don't know if we got anything else. We're approaching 3 hours now. It might be a good time to call it.
Mm-hmm. I hope Fern will come back though. Don't know why he's always so busy lately. I thought they were getting rid of this business, but they seem to have more than ever.
Yeah, seem he working all the time. So yeah. All right. Uh, I ain't got a real email topic of the week for you because it was kind of a slow week this week. We need Fern back because we are bad at two-person show. But yeah, one thing you can tell me about though, let me know what y'all think of me running the rig and how it sounds. I do want some feedback on things like the audio quality compared to normal. What are we missing? What can I work on? Stuff like that. So if you can help me pointing that out to me, that'd be appreciated. So Serathis, tell me how we sound when I'm running the rig, and I'll attempt to make adjustments so that in future it continues to sound good or bad, or rather less bad, and will keep sounding good, or I can fix it to be good. All right. You know what? I ain't got the character to fight this, you Mr. Abyss Mage, so I'm just gonna jump off the cliff.
You can't fight an Abyss Mage.
It's a water Abyss
with
Mage.
Diluc.
Yeah, it's a water Abyss Mage. Its shield ain't moving. So, all right. I think we're
I
done.
always use fire to fight water Abyss Mages. I don't have anything else.
I usually bust Oz out and just let him plink away at it. So yeah. All right, folks. We will see y'all next week.